computer. Okay, so if anything were to crash and burn, right, please rejoin. I'll make my this spotlight. Okay, so anyway, yeah, guys, Xavier, you're in NUSBs, which faculty, like what are you doing? Can record. Don't worry. You can't really record per se, but okay, the recording, I'll be doing it on my computer. So once I've done it already, then I will send to all of you. Don't have to worry about it. Okay, I'm not allowing to record for obvious reasons. One is because I've high say lah. I don't want to be recorded. No lah. But I need consent from like the CEO, Money Hour, and all this. So I mean, we are very fortunate to be able to to get very, very good speakers. I'm not sure whether you know of Money Hour. Money Hour is one of the social enterprise. Okay, so one of the social enterprise endorsed by so many people. I just don't know how to manage. This is overwhelming. I'm waiting for my sidekick, but my sidekick is going to get dinner. So like, I'm doing this all by myself. Wait, let me see first. Yes, all these people I know. Hey, wait. I'm waiting for my sidekick. Well, my sidekick is not here yet. My sidekick is eating dinner. Okay. Now, before we start, right? I need you all to. Okay, there's one polling questions which I will be asking you all. But when I ask the question, right? If you're my student and I mentioned, you know the answer because you heard the answer from me before. Please do not don't submit your answer, because I do not want you to skew the polling result. I want to do something which I've always dreamed of doing, which is to ask that polling question. So I see some of you asking. Oh, okay, steady. Thanks, Joshua. Thanks for saying that. Actually, I am thinking of this. Okay, stand-up comedian, right? You want me to say a joke? Let me say. I've done this joke before. You want to see or not? Yeah, I sometimes in class, right, I will show random stuff to my student one. You want to see? So I will just grab something random in my room and show my students. So this is probably the most random stuff I could show my students. This is a fire extinguisher. Then you must be wondering, how come I got a fire extinguisher at home? Very simple. If 我左看右看, left see, right see, kiri tengok, kanan tengok, it's all computer stuff. I'm scared something catch fire. And then, yeah, not good lah. Staying HDB some more. Yeah. So yes. Yeah, that's okay. Okay, great. We will wait for a while. We'll wait until like we get about 70 participants, and then we'll see how it gets. Hey, how's everyone? Okay, I got ancient students here, I got very ancient students. Ancient students, how are you guys doing, man? Actually, are you like I mean, ancient students, like when I was in uni, I teach. Reason you're not ancient, Reason you're not ancient. Reason you're not that ancient, honestly. Oh man, you're not ancient. But yes, you are the pioneer batch. I'll consider you the pioneer batch. Like basically, you are the one which I started off as a class at Clementi, and then after that you slowly follow me through. Okay, but not many students have the you actually saw me through lah. But I think the one that actually saw me through from the very start would be the one batch later than you. We see me do like the how the business evolved and stuff. Yeah. Yeah, okay, good man. Come, let's oh my goodness, look at all this. Oh my, I'm so excited. How's everyone? Hey, come, text me. Tell me how's your uni application is like. Yeah. How is everything like, man? Talk to me. I've also a lot of current students. I think current students, you're in for a treat, man. It's so fun. It's so fun. Okay, let me think. You want me to tell a joke, is it? Oh, okay. Let me tell a joke. Okay, this is a joke. Let me think first. Okay, you see, my name is Gan. So I think some of you already heard this joke before, but I'm just gonna say it. Okay. I feel that like being Asians, especially in the Southeast Asian region, right? Naming your children, right, it usually is very, very, very tough, because like you need to be aware of the other language and how it sounds like. So especially for my surname, it's very, very hard to find the correct name for my kid. So when I have my first child, right, me and my wife, like really, really just have to scratch our head to think of a proper name. So for one, I can't really name my son or my daughter, or my son per se, my child, Tommy, because my surname is Gan. Tommy Gan just doesn't cut it, right? So he just make things very bad. Apart from that, I can't even name, like, for example, like Megan, right? You know Megan, right? So Megan is like, why you call it? Because it's like Megan and the gun, it would just be Megan gun. So it's very bad in that respect. Actually, while I'm explaining this joke, I'm like trying to admit so many people are doing it. It's like, and also I can't name my son Logan, right? Same reason now. Logan gun. It's heck, man. What heck? My gun is just that. So you see, the thing is, the worst is Nina. I can't even name my daughter Nina. Okay, I mean it will just be, you know, gun Nina. Oh my goodness. So like, I mean, you wouldn't have this kind of problem elsewhere in the world, but only in Southeast Asia. The reason being is because, yeah, we have a lot of like this like social connotation and whatnot that we need to take care of, right? So basically, the reason why I say this is because I myself, right, am a victim of this. My dad did a very bad mistake in terms of naming. You see, I've always been very cautious about someone calling me. Okay. Okay, wait. My bouncer is here. My admin guy is here, so I need to make him the co-host first. Okay. He's finally here. I'm like admitting everyone in, right? Then after that, there's like, okay, hold on first. Okay. So let me see first. Okay. So my dad is bad at naming the kids. Right? I mean, it's just awful. Like when I introduce myself, I always introduce myself as Timothy Gan. The reason being because I had a very bad Chinese name. My Chinese, okay, my name is Gan Yu Peng. So my Chinese name is Yao Ping. Yao Ping, you know, like Yao Ping, Yao Ping. So when I say Yao Ping, Li Guang Yao the Yao Ping and the Ping, but actually it just sounds like medicine bottle in Chinese. So that is it. But that's not it, you know. My mom told me, right, my dad actually wanted to name me Mark. So my mom was like, why do you want to name me Mark? Then it was like, Mark Gan will be Makan, you know, like Mark Gan, Makan. Makan Yao Ping. Honestly, they just eat medicine bottle. It's awfully bad. But the thing was, the thing was like, this is not even the first time my dad made this mistake. I got like elder brother, right? His Chinese name is so screwed up. His Chinese name is called Yao He. So Yao He. So the medicine box and the medicine bottle. Then my basically and his English name is Yu Ho lah. So it's really bad. And his name is Paul lah. So that's why we just stick with our English name like Paul Gan and Timothy Gan, because yeah, we know that the name is just bad, man. We just be very mindful. So just saying, okay, don't you don't want to have a very tough life for your kids by just anyhow name them. You need to think through, okay? Is especially for, I'm not sure. I think for us as a Southeast Asian, when we are so like multiracial society, right? We tend to, yeah. I mean, I'm sure you've seen some weird names before. I mean, me and my wife, we are teachers, right? So when we choose the name for our daughter, right? We really just process of elimination, right? Like, because sometimes you just don't associate. Some names are just bad across the board. My wife is in a school in the north. I'm in a school in the central region. Then after that, right, we will have this common name, which all the I'm not going to say what name, okay? If you're very good, like me, I can tell you, but I wasn't going to tell you what name is it, but generally we need to cross it out because of process of elimination. So that's about it. Okay, we have about 65 of you turn up, but that's very good. It's 8 p.m. That's very good. Okay, now I will basically, sorry, me and my wife, no, I got only one wife only. Hey, Joshua, don't stir shit, don't stir shit, tell you. Okay, so basically, we are waiting for our surging. So I'll just explain a bit about surging and also Chunting, which is the CEO of Money Hour. So in case you haven't already know, Money Hour is actually one of the social enterprise. The coolest part about them, right, is I really feel that this is a conflict-free advice. Okay, so Basically, why? Because all their professionals, right? Their professionals are actually paid, paid at a regular salary. Okay, so then basically you get your advice as it is. So why is this important? They are social enterprise. So later on you can ask Chun Ting about what is it like. They have a lot of portion. There's insurance, I think, and also they have like investment and also will. So investment is just part of it. But I know basically today you all come here, you just want to learn about investing. But yeah, it's not wrong, but you have to know that financial health, it encompasses everything, including your insurance, your how do you plan and stuff like that. Now, how much you, some of you already asked very interesting questions. I really love them. So so for Money Owl, basically, if you think about all these investment products per se, right? A lot of things out there is actually commission based. So meaning to say that is the more they sell you, right, the more they earn. I mean, it's just there's a conflict of interest there. So, but Money One is not as such. So you can actually trust that their advice is just for you. They are a social enterprise. Their mission is to educate I mean, from what I read, may not be true, but their mission is just to make sure that they won't educate, all right, the Singapore public, how do you manage money like properly. Okay, so for me, I've always been a firm believer in long term. So I've been reading Serging's work quite a bit. Been learning last time. I've been following some of the blogs which resonates with me because I am a numbers guy. In case you haven't noticed, right, I'm a numbers guy. Okay, a lot of you actually trusted me because of the numbers. Saying, well, correct or not? You don't trust me, I don't want to say. But anyway, yeah, that's the idea. Oh yeah, great. Our what do you call it? Our speaker is here. Okay. Caleb Bouncer just make Surging the co-host. So basically, we are very fortunate to be able to invite Surging and also Chun Ting. I'm actually like a stalker but I know Surging. I always read his work, right? But then I'm like stalking him from afar. I wasn't even a friend with him on Facebook, but then like I have so much respect for his work that so I decided to just, hey, Surging, you want to come and help and talk to my students or not, to add value to my students, right? So he agreed, and he very kindly availed himself for tonight's webinar. All right, so I think it's really, really cool. And also Chun Ting as well. Chun Ting is one of my 大姐. I know her since I don't even know 10 years ago. Yeah, I always So I in church I know her in church, and I always do funny things So anyway, yeah. So she decided when I asked her, hey, you come. I really think that Money Hour is a very good solution. For it is really a good solution, and I'm on the basis where good things must share, right? Like I say, it's a conflict free solution for your. Okay. Oh, Serging, do you want to say anything? A few words to the audience?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Thanks for spending time on a Friday evening with me. I'd like to thank Timothy for extending this very kind invite. Yeah, and I'm really excited to be able to just share some of my thoughts about investing with the future of Singapore.
Yeah, thanks, man. Okay, so the other thing is what do you call it? Some of you have already filled up the questionnaire. So Serging actually pointed out that there are very good questions. So I'm going to just show you. Sorry. Maybe I should just stop sharing my screen. Sometimes a bit too much. So let me find the thing first. We'll be answering. Serging will be answering some of your questions, which are like I'll just show you at a glance what kind of question you have been asking. Then we will talk about it. These are there are 44. Oh wait, no. Sorry. Okay. So I'll share my screen now. So we have about this is we only have 19 responses. So obviously we have more than 90 people in this group. We have about 69 participants now, excluding 3 of us, me, Serging, and also Caleb. Yeah, but we will wait for a while. But these are some of the very nice questions that you've been asking. So yeah, just stay tuned. Serging will be answering some of your really like good questions. You can have a look at these questions here. So just to reiterate, right? Those of you who just came in. Oh, Chun Ting is here. Just to reiterate, if you have any question at all, just Zoom chat me privately. I'm not sure whether you can Zoom chat to Caleb. Do you all see Caleb? Caleb, yeah, can you just Zoom chat? Actually, can you Zoom chat the host? No, I'm not sure whether you all can, but you all can just Zoom chat. Oh, can you can Zoom chat me. So any question, right? You'll just Zoom chat me, or you see this guy named Caleb Ho. You all can just yeah, okay. Then you'll just Zoom chat him. He will be the one behind. He's a bouncer of. You think of him as a bouncer at a nightclub, right? He's a bouncer of this seminar. So everyone who is like not supposed to be here, he will just kick you out, okay? So, but he also compile your questions out. But we really love the questions that you were given us, so we will try to address them. Oh, Chun Ting is here. Chun Ting, do you want to say a few words?
Hello, Chun Ting.
Hi, Chun Ting.
She's on mute.
Yeah, okay.
Hi everyone, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, hi Tim, Sergin,
Hello,
Caleb,
hello.
and hi everyone. So happy to be here to have this discussion. Yeah.
Yay. Yeah, you want to share a little bit about yourself? How do you know
Okay.
Tim?
Okay. Tim and I actually go way back to the time when he was in NUS actually. Yeah, and we are actually church friends. So and after he graduated, and at some point he got married, and then he started this business, and also basically I to really bless students through providing very good learning opportunities, right? So I think Tim has always been about learning, and he's always so positive, and he's so talented. So I was very happy when I was very happy also to share with him a bit about investing along the years, but only very short. And so he asked me maybe we could come and maybe speak to all of you young people.
Yes. Yeah, I mean we definitely feel very young now because of the all the age is like, yeah, I mean there are people who are around our age, just so you know, but
Tim and I are
overwhelmingly
not the same age lah. Hello.
You look the same age.
you look the
Thank
same
you,
age.
Sergi.
Okay, anyway, yeah, like I say, like, I mean, I'm very thankful for both of you to I know time for you all is like very, very valuable. So to be able to come out and speak to mainly my students and to value add to their their learning, their learning as a whole, their learning journey in their life in terms of like being financially prudent, and also I think it's really what do you call it, priceless. I think it's really like something I would want it when I'm in uni, or let's say a fresh grad from my A levels. I would want someone to at least tell me what to look out for, and but it is what it is lah. So I mean, if I don't have that kind of opportunity, I think I should create that kind of opportunity for my students. So that's the starting point. Yeah. So I think we have how many participants in? We have about 69, still 69. 70. So I think should we start? I do not know. Should we wait? I think we should start. Okay, so 70, great. Okay, great. Maybe I should just text them and see who else is not in. Wait for 8. Okay, we will just wait for 8:15. So later on, I will do a very short polling question. So I'll repeat for those of you just in here. I sometimes would try and amplify it and try and reinforce the idea of compounding in class. So if you're my student and you've heard this answer, please don't vote in the first poll, because this is like something which I want to do in a long time. I just want to have a sense of how well generally people understood this question. So when the poll question come out, you just vote. What do you feel? You just vote. Okay, those of you already know the answer from me. Don't vote. Okay, so there's a few of you have already know it. So don't. We will wait. Yeah. So I was just telling, I'll just send them Chunting and searching. I just sometimes I'll just get like random stuff from my room, right, to show my students. So I was just telling them that I show them like English. Yeah, there's a random enough, but yeah.
Why do you have a fire extinguisher?
So I was just looking at it like, so kan you kan left see right see kiri tengok kanan tengok. It's like all the computer equipment. So it's like, and I do not know, this home office, right, only have like 2 power plug output. So everything is just like extension cords. So it's like very like there's only 2 power points, and I have like 4 or 5 computers in this room. So I'm like, don't know what to do. And then we are at
I can see how a fire extinguisher is necessary then.
Yeah, definitely.
So, it's got to do with financial planning also. Actually, yeah. I have an article about fire extinguishers, actually a very good one. Yeah,
about
really? How, yes, it's written by my my colleague, Christopher Tan. And he said, he basically told a parable that, there's this guy who has so many fire extinguishers in his house. Everything is fireproof, but actually that's because he's just like over scared and over kiasu, and he just wants everything that fireproof, the wall, fire extinguishers, and all that. And in the end he's not able to enjoy his life, right? Because he doesn't have a nice house. And actually sometimes that's the approach to buying insurance, right? You actually spend all your money on buying insurance, thinking that you want to have it be both saving and protection, but actually it's totally unnecessary because you don't need it except for when you want to recover and a potential loss in income and all that. So it's basically about being fit for purpose. I'll send it to you. I'll send you the link and you can share it everything.
wait, Chunting was an interesting read on. Yeah, I bought this is because I know I can get like contractors down to add all the PowerPoints, but the problem is when I have this set up for the the COVID situation, right? Then you cannot hire contractors, so we are sort of like okay, yeah, something like that. Okay, we will start, people. We will start. So Serging and Chunting, I'll just mute you all for a while. I'll just keep I'll just go through my slides pretty much. Okay, let's start with the first slide. So I'm not a financial professional. So whatever you hear from me, my take, like my personal take, right? I'm just an educator who is passionate about teaching the young minds, especially my students, in terms of like financial literacy. We know that like a lot of times in school, we always complain, why you never teach it in school? Yeah, I mean, school teachers' hands are tied. I've been in their situation before. It's really not about. They just have so many things on their plate, right? So you can't really pinpoint. So, but I think I'm in a very pretty good position to actually do these things. So this doesn't constitute a financial advice, okay? So let's move to the next slides. I think that's the most important one. So I will just tell you briefly what we're covering today. I'll be talking about the power compounding, and then Serging will be talking about how to invest, okay? And then after that, Chunting will be talking about financial planning. Then after that, I think the most interesting one is the Q&A session where all of us, you can just dump out all your question now, and then we'll just see how we can do it. Now, let's look at the first quote of today. This is a very handsome young man. I know him very well, but he may not know me. So the power compounding, compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. Now, Albert Einstein says that he who understands it earns it, he who doesn't pays it. Okay, maybe you want to repeat this like 3 times. He who understands it earns it, who doesn't pays it, he doesn't earn it, pays it. Okay, now to extrapolate and really understand the concept of compounding, right? One very good question is this one. So can you please just turn to your polling question now and just vote? How many times do you feel that if I have a paper, A4 paper, this thick, right? Any paper, I just take A4 paper. If I have an infinitely large paper that I can fold however many times I want, how many folds do I need, right? To actually, like, okay, this one, the thickness is times 2. Then I'll just fold again and fold again. Just keep folding, doubling the thickness of the paper. How many times do you need to fold, right? So that you reach the moon. Okay, so I'll just wait for you all to vote. Oh, I see a lot of you already know the answers. It's pretty cool. Okay, so is it the magnitude of 51 to 100 times, or 1 to 50 times, 101 times to 1,000 times, or 1,000,000 times, or, you know? So just do that. I'll wait for a while for you to vote. Can you just refer to your Zoom link? Right, just do a quick vote. Okay, those of you already know the answer. Yeah, pretty good. Okay, good. I think, yeah, that's it. Okay. Are we going to start polling now, so that we don't waste a lot of time? So I'm going to share the results now. You can have a look at it. So yeah, a lot of you got the correct answer. The answer is actually, so you refer to your result, is shown there. The answer is actually 43 times. Okay, so it's 43 times. It's just 43 times because there's a compounding. So if you want to know the mathematics behind it, right? This is the mathematics. So the average thickness of a typical A4 paper is 0.05 mm and so on. So you can have a look at the working lah. Okay, trust my working lah. I make a living out of this. So you should trust my math working. Okay, N is the number of times you should fold. So every time you fold is a twice lah. So just an idea. So for my students, you should be able to understand what is this working. I'll share the slides with you lah, so you don't have to worry so much. Now the idea is only 43 times. Now the first time when I encountered this question, right, I wouldn't lie to you, even for a mathematics teacher like me, I was dumbfounded. I think what I can draw from this is basically we humans, right, we don't have the capability to understand exponent function very well. We just can't wrap our head when it becomes like the exponential function. So that's the thing. It's not intuitive for us. So that's part. So now the next question, it will be, wouldn't it be great, right, if you would somehow grow your wealth, right, as such? So I would I think it's, in my opinion, I think it's possible. So I'm just gonna give you an example which all of us can relate to lah. Okay, I'm just gonna take one simple stock that everyone of us know. Let's look at an OCBC stock. Okay, so I'm gonna dumb this down because I know some of you are asking me like, what you all may not understand what's a stock is. So what is a stock? To put it simply, a stock is the ownership of a company. You buy a paper and it says that you own a percentage of the company. Okay, so that's one. And what is a dividend? A dividend is like basically if, say, you own 10% of Tim Gan Math Learning Center and we make $10 that year, then we decide you are owner, then we decided each owner get $2, so you get $2. So that's the idea. You get the profit, right? You from the and distribute it to the business owner. So that's the idea there. So if you do a quick Google search, OCBC stock price on Google is a very, very powerful. Basically, you can see all this stuff here lah. So this PE ratio and all this stuff, you can ask the Jing later. But what I want you to see is the dividend yield. Dividend yield is 6%, 6.09%. This was taken like 3 days ago. So let's say, just put it simply, I'm not going to say that, or what's a lot size and whatnot. Just put it simply that we just going to take $100 and reinvest, take all the 6% and reinvest it every year. Okay, so this is akin to the paper thing you fold to the moon one. Okay, so it means the first year you have $6, then you put it back and then you reinvest. Okay, so we're going to see what's the outcome like. The outcome is as such. So just put the $100 there and reinvest. You don't even need to touch it. So for me, okay, this is not to tell you that you should go and buy OCBC. Like, don't take it as my an advice, okay? But I do own OCBC shares. I opt for shares option instead of cash. So basically, it's as good as putting there and it just keep going on forever. So as you can see, right, after 1 year you have $6. It makes sense. Your $100 plus the $6. 5 years you have an extra $34. Okay. Now you look at the 30 years here. 30 years is, if you want to know what's 30 years, it's basically you can buy three cars, 3 times the COE. So you have $474 extra. You see that? So that is like what compounding does. Just sit there and don't do anything. It just compounds. Okay. So obviously most of us would not just put our money like one time and wouldn't do. So what we would do is that, let's say a more realistic event case would be, scenario would be, we just put $100 every month, and we have an extra $100, right? You just don't go for that 2 restaurant meal or whatnot. You have that's $100 every month, or some amount of $50 is also okay. Okay, so you put in something. So this is what I just searched STI annual return, and this is the one that came out. This article came out in Straits Times. The annualized return is 9.2% over how many years? 10 years period, is it? Yeah. So you look at this investment of dividends. This is a highlight. You can do a quick Google search. If you don't have, never mind. I send you the slides. You can see the link. Okay. Now, let's consider 2 very relatable group of people. One is Bali. Okay. His name is Bali because he's drinking Bali. He's not drinking beer. So he's Bali. He starts investing at, from the age 28 and 62 until 62. Why 62? 62 is the retirement age in Singapore. And say he just allocate $100 a month. Every month, $100. Just keep putting in consistently. Don't even need to time the market. Just put in only. Okay, in the STI. STI is basically sorry, I may just be carried away. STI is a basket of stocks. So instead of buying OCBC, imagine you have this basket with Apple, Orange, and like OCBC, Keppel, don't know what, Singtel, all this in the whole basket. So you just buy that basket instead. So that Straits Times Index is a index fund. So every country has their like multiple index funds. For Singapore, we have STI. For US, maybe you have like S&P 500 and so on, right? So the idea is just is like buying a bunch of stocks. So 9% annualized return. Now he total invested, if you go and calculate, every year is 1,200 a year. So from here to here, he will spend 4,080. Then let's consider another one. So remember, Bali probably graduated from uni already, and then work for a few years, then start investing. Then we consider one more, which is curry. Okay, so curry, surname chicken, curry chicken, start at the age of 18. So 18 could start. So you just consistently put an amount inside. So total invested until he retire. He just put 100, he don't care, just put 100 only. Then with 52,800, right? So let's look at what they will get at the end of their retirement age. So the retirement age they will get, right, is basically, you can see that actually this, I have this Excel sheet. If you need it, I can show you. This would be curry and this would be Bali. By a 10 years difference only, do you see that how it compounds? Okay, so that is the idea of compounding. You must understand that a little bit also you just keep compounding. So the amount that you get will be twice. All right, so Bali, curry, so this is like twice of the amount just by putting 100 and just 6%, 9% reinvested. Obviously 9% may not be realistic per se, but let's say 7% also is quite significant. So I actually did like, if this is 200, this is the amount they will get. 200 a month, 500, this is the amount they will get. Okay, so that's the idea. So what can we draw out from this small case study? This small case study tells us something. It tells us, right, that, okay, these are quotes from very prominent investors, Warren Buffett. I think all of us heard before. So the idea is to really enjoy the fruit of compounding, you need the end, means a long term. The longer you hold it, the better it is, because it's an exponential curve. Okay, you read this quote. The interesting thing is it takes time, discipline, and patience. So no matter how great the talent or effort, right, you can't produce a baby in 1 month by getting nine women pregnant. It's just impossible. Okay, if someone can do it, just let me know. Then I'll probably take this slide out from this presentation. Okay, so then the last one, which is this this one, I heard a lot of people saying it. I think Chun Ting said it before also, or Serging. I'm not sure where I got this quote from, but time in the market is definitely better than time in the market. Time in the market, horizon, like the time horizon you have. Okay, obviously you start younger, the better it is. The much time you have in the market, right, rather than timing the market. If you already watched the video I asked you to share, watch from Chun Ting, right, you will understand that. Okay, just go and watch the 3 minutes video that I asked you to watch. So now the next question would be, Mr. Gan, if it's so easy, right? If it's so easy, right? How come nobody do it? Okay, why so little? So these are my 2 cents worth. One is I feel as I grow older, I realize that a lot of people get confused between the terms investing and speculation. Okay, so what does investing mean? So or speculation. So I know it can be fancy charts and graph can be more exciting, definitely, but because it seems like more homework. But to me that is speculation. Okay, or not knowing the idea of value and the fundamentals. So what is the business? What keeps the business running? Is the cash flow, positive cash flow, that the revenue, profit? What's the competitive advantage? All this kind of thing. You need to evaluate this. You need to ask Jing. This is a spiel. I'm merely the messenger. Okay, so just ask Jing. So then this is the first. To me, I feel this is the one. Then the second one is not knowing yourself enough. Okay, I'm not suggesting that you should do what I do, because I feel that, at least I feel that I know what I'm doing. Okay, I know that people who, when the portfolio drop 20%, 30%, right, they straight away go and sell. They very kanchong. Yeah, recently my stock portfolio dropped quite a bit, but me and my wife, we didn't even budge, right? Because we understand the value. The money is what you pay for, but the value is what you get. So we know that, but instead we put it down more position in our stock. So but I understand that some people may not have the appetite. So you need to know yourself. If you're not the kind that can tahan, right, then I guess you need someone like, I think Money Hour is pretty good to help you out. Okay, so do you need the funds? So this is important, because when you're in desperate moments, right, if you don't have like 6 months cash test with you, right, like you don't have emergency funds, right, you'll be pushed to do like bad decisions. Okay, so these are my 2 cents. And then basically the last few slides, some of you are asking like, what are the books which kept me started? I wouldn't lie to you. Investla is, so this is a local author. It's actually written by Serging, Sudan, and Wei Lin. Wei Lin is also one of my friends. So I read these 2 books to start off understanding what are things like. Okay, so for the intelligent investor, it may be a bit too tough for some of us. So what you could do, you could just look at some YouTube videos. Like the videos give a pretty good overview of the summary of the book. Then you can read some blogs. I will suggest these 3 blogs because, okay, I personally read these 2 blogs and also Money Hour. I actually read Smart Investor and good. I used to because Serging used to be from Motley Fool Singapore. Then I used to read a lot of his work. Yeah, so basically I follow this. Money Hour is when Chunting share on Facebook. Then I'll read the blog. Sometimes I will just, when something pop up, I will also read as well. Okay, so these are pretty 3 good content to get you started off with. Okay, some reads which I find that is helpful for me. All right. So without further ado, I think I will pass the time now to Serging. Any question, just text, just Zoom chat Caleb, okay? He will get the stuff up for you. Yes, Serging. Hold on, let me unmute you. Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Okay,
great.
Okay. So right, Serging, we before the whole webinar, we got actually got some of the questions from the audience. So I thought we thought that actually it's good that you address some of their common questions that they have.
Yep.
Right.
Happy
so
to.
we just straight dive into it. Okay. So the first pretty interesting question. Yes. How do you start your investment journey, and what is the best way to start if you have no experience at all?
Sure. So two-part question. So the first part, I started my investment journey by reading books, but I was very interested to read about investing because I was in junior college. So I believe some of the participants here are also probably in junior college now. Am I right? Or are they older or younger? Like should be around that age. So I was in National Junior College and I took economics as one of my subjects. And I realized that a lot of the basic underlying assumptions of the theories taught in class did not seem right to me. So I wanted to find out more from people who actually worked with money. And then that led me to Warren Buffett, whom Timothy mentioned a few times in his presentation, and some of Buffett's mentors and peers. So I started reading a lot about the books that were written by them or about them, and what they said resonated with me. So to them, investing is not just about being mathematically inclined, being able to read financial statements or being able to understand the numbers behind finance. It's also a lot about behavior, right? The so like the framework that they had for to understand the financial markets resonated with me. I thought it was really logical, and I thought it's really fun as well to be able to so because as I started reading more about investing, I realized that it is it it is an intersection of many different uh, knowledge fields. For example, there is technology, there's history, there's sociology, there's finance, there's economics, there's psychology. All these different things combine and form like this activity called investing. And so I thought that it is a really fascinating intellectual pursuit as well. Yeah. So that's what got me really hooked. Since I was 17 or 18, I'm currently 33. So nearly half my life has been spent trying to learn about investing. So that is my my journey in the investment world so far. I think the best way to start if you have no experience is really just to read. And I think, but it's more important to not to just. It's also important to read in a smart way. So one of my biggest pet peeves about about media when they talk about finance is that they will often bring on people, so-called experts, to share their views and opinions, but but there is no real background check done on some of these people. Like for example, I wouldn't name names, but like there are people who may have called for a recession every single year over the past 20 years. Eventually they'll get it right, and then they will become famous. But a broken clock is also right twice a day, right? So I think it's important, like if you want to it's the best way to start if you have no experience is to really just read a lot. But you should also be finding sources of information that I think are credible. And an easy way to do so would be, for me at least, I found like, so if I find an author, I can always Google like, say if the author is Philip Fisher, which is the author of the very first investment book that I ever read. Philip Fisher is actually one of the mentors of Warren Buffett. So I'll Google like Philip Fisher track record, and then I see what pops up. Sometimes it's not a perfect way to search for the credibility of somebody, but I think it is a very good place to start with.
Yes, that's very good, man. So the next question will be, when would we know that we are ready to invest?
Beautiful, fantastic question. Maybe Chun Ting can also share some of her thoughts in the later Q&A section about this, but I think we can only know if we are ready to invest after the fact. So it is really so. For example, Timothy also mentioned about the fact that some people are just naturally more kanchong when they lose money in the market, right? So it's very easy for people to say like, I definitely will be able to endure a 50% decline in my stock portfolio. But when it actually happens, when there's a 20% fall, some people will have already freaked out. And so I think you can only know if you're ready to invest from a psychological standpoint by actually doing it and then observing how you behave when stock prices fall. I think one of the so-called beautiful things about the market is that when you buy something, it will tend to fall. in the early days, so observe yourself and see how you actually feel when your actual money declines in value temporarily. Yeah. So for me, right, I think that investing is actually 90% behavioral and 10% intellectual. So the brain power or the knowledge actually really needed to invest isn't that high, because we have had so much improvements being made in the infrastructure in the financial markets and the technologies available in the financial markets that it's now really easy to be a good long-term investor. Like for example, by going with like Money Owl.
Yeah.
Things like these did not exist even just like 5 years ago, for example.
Yes,
So
I agree.
there's a lot of improvements being made that where we can become a really good investor from that intellectual standpoint, because we don't need to know so much, but the behavioral standpoint is where I think it's the most important thing. And so we wouldn't really know if we're ready to invest behaviorally unless we actually do it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very good standpoint. Let's look at the next question. The next question is, how much money would be a good starting point? When do I know I'm ready to invest?
So again, I think like in terms of how much money, the more important question would be to figure out like how much can I afford to lose, especially for people, young people like you guys who are just starting out. But I would say that the really good thing about starting out young is that and I think Chun Ting will probably might be talking about this a bit later, is that like so there are two forms of capital that every person has. There is the human capital, meaning that our potential to be earning money with our efforts, so it's like kind of like your labor, the money that you earn from labor. And then there's the financial capital, which is like basically the money that you earn and save. When you're young, you may not have a lot of financial capital, but you have tons of human capital. So the great thing is that even though you might lose some money in the early days, I hope not, but if it happens, that's fine, because your financial capital is very little, but you have a lot of human capital, right? So I think there's no real one size fit all answer. But what I would say also is that I talked about Money Hour a bit earlier, and I think that like this robo advice, Money Hour calls themselves a bionic advisor, I believe. So, but in terms of substance, it's quite similar to robo advisors. I hope Chun Ting does not get angry with that characterization. But by and large, generally speaking, I think like the emergence of robo advisors in Singapore has actually allowed many investors to start off investing with even very small sums. I think as low as like $100, you can actually get started and be invested in a globally and diversified portfolio. So I think like in terms of the money, how much money would be a good starting point? It's really not much actually. Yeah. And then the second question is, when do I know I'm ready to invest? I think I answered that like
Yes.
right. Yeah.
Sorry, it's a repeat. I didn't see that.
Oh, okay. No, it's
yeah. I think this is also another one. I think in our audience, many they are youthful, like, so they are like, what we have done. They're asking like, if you can rewind time, what will you do? Yeah.
After I answer, can we please have Chun Ting answer as well? I'm like I'm eager to hear her thoughts about this question. I think it's incredible.
I
Question. What I would have done. So okay, so let's use 20 because it's easier to count. 20 years. When I was 20, that would be 13 years ago. Feels like a lifetime ago. But if I could go back in time, I would tell myself to start investing real money earlier. I started learning about investing at 17, and I only started investing actual money at about 24. So there was a long time gap there, partly because I kind of lost a bit of interest in between. But I think if I had started earlier, then I could have really taken advantage of that really beautiful compounding chart that Timothy showed, the one where where there's barley and curry, is that right? Like where one starts at 18 and the other starts at 28, and then I wish I could have started investing earlier, because I think the actual act of investing money, as I mentioned earlier, does wonders for our education as an investor. So what I really wish I had done was to actually be investing when I was 19 or 20.
That's what I've been trying to tell my students, and say everyone I know, right? All of us thought that we could have just started earlier. I started at the age of 26, so it's like, okay. So let's look at the next question. The next question is,
can we get Chun Ting to answer first?
Oh yeah, sure. Chun Ting, do you want to weigh in your
What will I have done as 19, 20 years old? Actually, to be honest, I don't think I actually come from I was an art student, right? So I studied history, and later on I did a second degree in Chinese. So I wouldn't. My parents are Chinese teachers, and we grew up in a sort of 3-room flat, and my parents were very prudent and never invested, right? And also they thought that they were doing the right thing, but actually for reasons of compounding costs, asset growth, and all that, that may not actually have been the wise things to be the most risk averse. Okay? And because they missed out in that sense on the growth of their wealth, because of lack of understanding of financial markets. Now, when I started, so my first job has nothing to do with finance. I was in the Ministry of Defense, actually, as a policy officer, so doing a lot of international relations and all that. And I wouldn't say I was very good with money, actually. Yeah, and this is partly why, actually, it's a bit ironic, but also I would like all young people actually to pay attention to this as soon as possible. Yeah. So what will I have done? To be honest, now I'm actually much older than most of you. End of this year, I'll be 45. And when and about 20 plus years ago, many things that existed today did not exist then. Right? So even electronic trading of shares was relatively, I think, probably new. And we probably didn't even have internet at that point. You know, you had to actually call a reminder who would take a big commission, all that. So the number of instruments, the kind of access you have and all that today is very different from what it was at that time. Yeah. So I guess during what I've really focused on would have really been in saving. And I guess I don't know whether I would have understood stocks at that time, but if I were 20 years old today, there'll be many options. Yeah. So if I just pick up very quickly on the previous question, which is when do you think you're ready to invest, right? Or how much to invest? It is an issue of when we advise people to invest, you need to do 3 things. You need to know your ability to take risk, your willingness to take risk, which is your risk tolerance, and your need to take risk, which is your need for return. Yeah. So these are the 3 things. And upfront, any advisor would have to ask you or try to tease out from you what is your ability, which is mainly about time horizon, and your willingness to take risk, but also balance against your need to take risk. So this is where advice actually comes in. Because what happens if you have a very high need to take risk, you have a high ability to take risk, but you have very low willingness to take risk, right? So do we go to the lowest common denominator? A normal advisor, just to basically CYA, you know what CYA is? There's acronyms called cover your ass, right? So basically because of compliance and all that. So a lot of times, right, you just go down to the lowest common denominator and you'll put you in a very safe portfolio, doesn't return you anything, right? But so this is called risk coaching. And when someone, advisor must come alongside to remind you about the evidence about the markets, part of which I had sent to you in the video through Tim. The other part though is that when markets come down significantly, like they did this year, your advisor's job is again to risk coach you, to remind you that you have the ability to take risks based on what you have gotten into, and so that you do not panic and press the button. We always say that this is like, imagine that you're a roller coaster. Okay? You know that you are on this roller coaster. You know it is safe. You are strapped in. Okay? And you know that if you just go on the ride, no matter how you feel in your heart, you know it'll be all right. But what if we had a stop button for you to press on the roller coaster? If you had pressed the stop button at the worst point of the roller coaster, you would have died, because the centrifugal force and all that is such that you actually like drop out of your seat, right? So that's the thing, is that you don't want to press the stop button. What you want to do then is, investing is a bit like being on a roller coaster with a stop button, because you can always sell. So what you want to do is you choose the roller coaster that is most suited for you in terms of your need, ability, and willingness to take risks, so you never press the stop button.
I love that.
Yeah, that's very good. Like, I think, yeah, enlightening. I never thought of it as a roller coaster thing. I will never see roller coaster in the same light.
Yeah, that's why roller coasters have no stop buttons.
Okay. Okay. So should we move on? The next question.
Yep.
Can investing be, oh, this is pretty interesting. Can investing be your only source of income when you are an adult, or is it more like a side job?
So there are three so-called ways to describe this, right? So the first is somebody who's actually investing, depending on his investments as the only or main source of income. Then there are people who invest as like a side job, and then there are people who invest professionally. So in a way, Chun Ting is one of those. She's the CEO of Money Owl, which is a firm that also helps does financial planning but also helps people to invest. So there are these three ways of thinking about this. So I have friends who are actually investing, who are depending on their investing activities as the only source of income. So it can be done, but they were fortunate in life to be able to amass a huge amount of capital at a relatively young age, because they were most of them were business owners. Some of them inherited some wealth, so they were able to have a nice pot of gold and then invest that in the financial markets to generate income that they live off. So it is possible. And then I have another friend who is quite an inspiration to me. He is in his late 40s, and he worked in he had like kind of a pretty he was a high wage earner, but not super high. But what he did was he was very thrifty. He managed to save a lot. So in his working, as he worked, he saved a lot, and then he took the money and he invested intelligently. So that intelligent investing and that thriftiness enabled him to basically retire at a relatively young age of the early 40s. Yeah. So I would say that it is possible, but there are two things you need to do. Two main things, I think. First is that you must be willing to be a thrifty person. And then the second thing is that you must be willing to educate yourself as an investor.
Yes. Very good point, man. What about the next one? This next one is for a passive investor, would you say that index investing is the best way to go in terms of spending the least amount of time to achieve decent returns over the long run?
Yeah, I think
Wait, I think for the audience sake, I think could you explain what is the index investing? Probably
Sure.
like this. Yeah.
So there's this construct, a stock market index. A stock market index is essentially a collection of stocks that gives people a good idea of how a collection of stocks have done. So typically, every country with a functioning stock market will have its own index that tries to give people an idea of how that country's particular stock market is doing. So in Singapore's case, Timothy mentioned the Straits Times Index, the STI. So it's a collection of 30 of the most liquid and largest companies in Singapore stock market. So what the STI does is it basically tracks the collective changes in the share prices of these 30 companies every day, and then gives people like a number. And then we can say that, oh, okay, if the STI is up about 1%, so we can say that in general, stocks in Singapore will up about 1% for that particular day. So index investing, in a way, is it's a way for investors to be able to participate in an entire country stock market, using funds that track the index. Yeah. So to answer the question itself, I think there's no better answer than just saying yes, because like there are people invest for many different reasons, but I think investing is not necessarily an activity that a lot of people may want to spend time on. They want to be able to grow their wealth, but they want to grow their wealth in a way that enables them to enjoy all the other things in life that they want to do. So in such cases where where you're not really where you don't really have an interest or passion for investing, and you want to do things that are more meaningful to you outside of the financial markets, then I think index investing is a fantastic way to achieve decent returns over the long run.
Yeah, agree. So I think this I already sort of like recommended some books, but anyway,
Mhm.
so I think some of the audience was asking, when I find books about investing with some background theory, it is often not based in Singapore context. Would you like
Mhm.
would like to know where I could start? You know, I'm looking to understand and understanding the basic mathematics as well as the financial terms.
So I'm not trying to promote my own book, but I
I help
think
you. I help you. I help you. Yeah.
me and my friends Sudan and Waylin, we wrote Invest La uh, in so many years ago, 2012 I think, and then we published a book in 2014 or 2013. So it's a book that we wrote because we wanted to talk a little bit more about like the Singapore financial scene. Yeah, so I think that could be a good place to start. But I would say that by and large, most of the basic mathematics and the financial terms, they are transferable across countries. They're like if you learn something that applies, like the math and the financial terms that applies to say the US market, I would say 99% of it is also applicable for the Singapore market. We may have our own slightly unique terms, but I would say they are largely similar.
All right, man. Okay, we have the last one. Then we move on to Chunting lah. Okay. Then
Sure.
after Chunting, we will have more Q&A. So just keep your question coming in. I understand that you all have a lot of questions now. So while Chunting is speaking, I will have to compile them. Okay, let's look at the last one. Which companies do the speaker in this sense, I think, in their own personal opinion, has the highest value but lowest price at the moment? Should we also invest in the banking industry?
So I think this this question would actually the answer to this question, I would say, differs for there's no one size fit all answer, because ultimately every individual is different, so we should be investing differently. And what this also means is that our portfolio construction will be different. So a stock that I think has the highest value but lowest price may not necessarily be the right stock for another individual. Because my ability, like Chun Ting mentioned, my willingness to take risks can be very different from, say, Timothy or some of you in this chat. So I don't think an avenue like this is the right place to ask a question like this, because I don't know anything about you as an investor, so it's really difficult to say something that could suit you as an individual. So I think it's more important to understand yourself as an investor first, before you start thinking about what individual stocks do you want to be investing in. Then the second part, should we invest in the banking industry? A question like this, I would say that you first have to ask yourself and be honest with yourself that, do I understand the banking industry? Before you invest anything, the first and most important question is, do I understand the industry? Yeah, so I don't know if you understand the banking industry, so it's a question that you will have to figure out yourself. Tim, you're on mute.
Sorry, I muted myself because there are too many clickings and typing around here, so I don't want to interrupt you. Yeah, I think thanks for it's really enlightening. Okay, I will try and reiterate, if you have any Q&A questions, right, please send to Caleb Ho. He's the bouncer of this chat, this webinar, so he will compile the questions. We will now move the time to Chun Ting. Chun Ting will be talking about financial planning for youngsters, or in general, not just for youngsters. Then after that, we will have our Q&A session. So just keep asking us. Chun Ting, do you want to take? I will let you share the screen.
Please mute me, Tim.
Hold on.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Sujing.
Just a moment. Yeah. Sorry. Okay, share screen, and here we go. Okay. Hi everyone. So again, but before I start, I just want to say something. I mean, I think Tim and even Serging have been very kind to mention money hour many times. I just want to assure you that I don't pay them anything to say anything about Money Hour, right? So, but I'm very grateful for their for their support. Yeah. And then thanks so much, Sergin, for sharing. I think Sergin has really been. I talked to Sergin not so long ago actually, and we were really just so inspired by his passion for investing, and he really lives and breathes it. And I think you should really go take a look at what he's written, and for a young person who can really like write so well and articulate so well everything, that it really shows that he's been thinking very, very deeply about investing. So I wish him every success in what he's doing. Yeah. So if I now may go on, so yeah, very pleased to be here today again to share about financial planning to mainly a group of young people, and maybe slightly not so young like me. As I understand that some parents around as well. But financial planning is something that every one of us needs to think about. But very, very quickly, who is Money Owl? Now, I am the CEO and CIO of Money Owl, and Money Owl is a financial advisory company, but also a fund management firm. I would like to say we are a startup in a sense, and I have the privilege of being the founding CEO and one of the directors of Money Owl. However, unlike many venture capital funded startups, I'm not an owner. We are actually owned by two corporate parents. Both are homegrown Singapore entities with decades of experience in Singapore and serving people by doing the right thing. One is our majority shareholder, NTUC Enterprise. That's the holding entity for FairPrice, for NTUC Health, for NTUC First Campus, and others. So they are our 60% shareholder. And our other parent is one of the oldest financial advisors and the first and probably the only fee-only financial advisor in Singapore, called Provident. And they specialize in retirement planning, although mainly for a more niche high net worth market. But with being a best-in-class financial advisor, together with the social mission and also the reach of the NTUC Enterprise, these two shareholders came together to form Money Hour about 1.5, almost 2 years ago. Okay, so Money Hour's mission is really to bring the help people make the best and wisest money decisions, and help people, meaning ordinary folk, not just affluent people or smart people or you know, a unique set of people, to be able to make these wise financial decisions to support their life goals, and to do it in a way that is easy in terms of access, easy in terms of confidence, because you know that we are not hard selling you, and easy in terms of the whole process, you know, being comfortable. And as part of this, we actually deliver it through a bionic platform. Bionic meaning that we combine technology and human beings. Human being means our qualified financial advisors. We like to say that, and we believe that we are actually humans augmented by tech. As humans, we use tech. We don't. We are not overwhelmed by tech. So that's why we call bionic. So we are Singapore's first bionic financial advisor. We have. We wouldn't say we are robo-advisor. Robo-advisors tend to be investment only. We actually have 4 robos though. You know, in insurance, in those that you see here, and investments, in will writing, and in comprehensive planning. Yeah. And our advice is conflict-free. Unlike many advisors in Singapore, most advisors, I would say, our advisors are salaried. We do not receive any commission. And we are, of course, hoping to be a comprehensive planner that is a one-stop shop, and as well as to help you make all the trade-offs that you need between all these financial products that you might see out there in terms of your financial solutions. Yeah, so very quickly, then let me move on to what we see as financial planning. Financial planning this is how we define it. Financial planning is about achieving your life goals, no matter what happens, and in a comfortable manner. I'll say that it's about life goals and not financial goals, because money is an enabler and not a goal. So what do I mean? Let me just maybe share this first diagram, which tries to illustrate firstly, why do you need financial planning? We are all now at this stage, or moving into a stage whereby we'll be earning an income. And when you earn an income during these 20, 30, or for some of you 40 years, until the time when you decide to slow down or retire, or maybe it's not your decision, you are forced to do this for whatever reasons, you, in this interim period, you earn the most and you also spend the most. But there will come a time when you no longer earn but still spend. And so therefore, you do need to be able to have an income to finance this part of your future life, where you no longer have an income. And how do you do that? You need to be able to build your current assets into future assets that is big enough and suitable in the way that it is constituted, in order to finance your rest of your life, to have a comfortable retirement. Now, there is inflation as well that actually compounds. Now, it's great to see the idea that if you invest, you can compound into a big pot at the end. But what you might say, but actually I don't care about being rich, right? So just now I shared about how you can be very prudent and not take any risk. So what happens when you say you don't want to take any risk? Then you are not compensated for that. What are you compensated for? Bank deposit rates. But do bank deposit rates outstrip inflation in the long run, and the required inflation, including increases in standard of living over these decades? The general answer is no. And that is why you need to be accumulating and saving in the right place. Saving in just a bank account doesn't cut it if you want to build enough of a future asset so that when you no longer earn but still spend, you can still have a very decent and comfortable lifestyle. So when we want to understand income in the time when we no longer income and expenses and financial planning in general, let me introduce this idea of your money bucket. Now, you can only really spend out of liquid assets, the things that you can go out there and exchange for things that you buy, goods and services, right? So what goes into your money bucket? Well, you might have a pot of cash, that you can put into this bucket. If you are earning salary, you would have that salary is an inflow into your bucket. You might have other income like dividends. You might have rental income, interest, or you have bonds. You have coupon on bonds, which is the interest that the bond issuer pays you. And when you retire, you have a CPF that has been accumulating, and this CPF as a lump sum also goes into your liquid bucket. And there's a CPF Life, which is an annuity that comes off your CPF that pays you a monthly income for life, and this is again liquid, right? So what then comes out? What does this bucket finance? This bucket pays for your current lifestyle expenses, one-off expenses. For example, if you needed to buy a house, you need a down payment, so that's a one-off expense. When you start to have financial independence or retirement, there will be a time when you are still very healthy, active, and all that, and you need to finance that. There'll be a time later on in your retirement years when you're a bit older, and because of disability, slow down in general, where you might have a different type of expenses. For example, you might need helpers, you might need a nursing home, and those expenses also have to be financed. So this money bucket finances all of these things at different times. Now, so let's summarize about this money bucket. You can spend whatever you have in your bucket whenever you want. Things outside the bucket, just now I showed some property and all that, you can only spend if you sell those assets. So if you have your wealth mainly in your residential home, for example, it doesn't actually add to the bucket from which you can draw money in order to spend on goods and services to finance your lifestyle. So I always say it's great to have a big house, but you can't eat the bricks. So a house in that sense, for the purposes of financial planning, we generally put it aside because it is in that sense consumption, right? Because you're still living in it. Now, we also know that there is money coming into the bucket, which is your income, that might one day stop when you stop working. But you also have some future inflows. For example, your CPF life annuity payments that will flow into your bucket but later. So financial planning, a lot of it is about understanding how this water, in that sense, is created and how it is when it comes and how it goes. So the question then we need to ask ourselves is, what is the philosophy of money? What is your relationship to money? Which money type are you? If your bucket is always not enough, that means your bucket is going to run out. What you're doing is adopting the YOLO money equation. You only live once money equation. On the other extreme, perhaps you have too much. You scream and save and everything, and your bucket is actually going to be too much. So what you are actually adopting is the FIRE equation. This is a relatively new movement, which basically stands for financial independence and retire early. Or perhaps you are in the middle when you have just right amount. You may not know it, but you have just the right amount. And this is what I would like to call the WISE money equation. In this case, unlike YOLO and FIRE, WISE is just WISE. Okay, as a wisdom, this doesn't stand for anything. Yeah. So which money type are you? Let me go through first how the YOLO money equation looks like. Now, everyone has a short-term money equation and a long-term financial equation. Or rather, two parts to this. Everyone has an equation that has two parts that look like this. On the left-hand side is the short-term part of the equation, whereby you earn an income and then you save. Remember, no, I put savings first because one of the best habits is actually to pay yourself first, to put aside an amount to save. And then you also have fixed expenses and variable expenses. Fixed expenses are those that you must pay anyway. For example, if you have a housing loan or a car loan, you will have to pay those loan expenses. And then you have variable expenses, which would be like, bubble tea or eating out and all that. Yeah. So out of savings, then, as you put them into financial investments, then across a number of years, this compounds into your future nest egg. Now, the problem when you're YOLO, what happens is that actually you probably may not even do this saving. You might have a lot of expenses. So what you can put towards your future goes down. So what does this mean? If your goal, which is remember I said need to take risk. If your need to take risk or your need for return remains high, then but your base is small, you actually end up doing this. You actually end up seeking the high returns. And this scramble for returns to combat the impact of inflation or combat not enough to financial lifestyle can result in you taking unnecessary risk because you are thinking, I need that 20% per annum return, I need that 1000% return, and then you'll see very interesting things happen like crypto and all that, and a lot of risk taking, a lot of leverage, borrowing money to invest and all that. But taking these risks actually increases the uncertainty of reaching your goals, because that's the whole idea of risk taking, right? It is uncertain that exactly whether or not you will get there. And the higher the risk that you take, and when you're uncertain about reaching your goals, you actually affect your life in terms of your health, relationships, and your career. And you also become more insensitive as you're stressed about that to what might be truly important to you, be they community matters, ethical matters, or spiritual matters. And we know that young people especially are actually very passionate about all these matters. So we do not want this, do not wish for any of us to be really gripped by money or become a slave to money because of this lack or this fear of not having enough. So what about the other extreme of a FIRE money equation? A FIRE money equation will seek as much as possible to increase as much income, and this could mean doing a job you hate. And then you save as much as possible, and you don't spend. You spend as little as possible, so you like never buy any new clothes. If you want to go on a date with somebody, you think, okay, never mind, I'll just do a Zoom virtual lunch and all that. And you're a bit like Mr. Scrooge in Christmas Past, and you don't need so much returns because you actually have to start from a high base. But this has an assumption that you actually do have this number of years, and your life actually only starts after a period of accumulation. But my question to you then is, do you know how long you would live? Do you know whether you will live to that point, be it 10 years or so, to then start really enjoying life? We advocate at Money Hour a more balanced approach that we like to say a wise money equation. Yes, we try to earn our income and increase our income, but not at the expense of our happiness and what we doing, what is fulfilling to us. We put our savings not only towards financial nest egg, but also towards fulfilling activities now. We try as best as possible to decrease our expenses, but not to the extreme. So if we want to adopt the wise money equation, what are the implications for financial planning? So it's really about finding that right balance between living a life now while accumulating for the future. Because life is not a rehearsal. It begins today. Life does not begin tomorrow. We don't have a contract with God. We don't say that, okay, God, you're only going to call me upstairs in 40 years, so I can now scream and say for 10 years and not do anything and be very hard on myself and live like Spartan, and then I'll live 30 years of so-called freedom. But by the way, if what do you really mean by freedom? Is it really to do nothing? Because I would probably put to you that is not really what a fulfilling life is about anyway. So life is not a rehearsal, but money is an enabler and not a goal. So when it comes to financial planning, it is about living a fulfilling life actually, and it's not about buying more products. And not all decisions are financial decisions. Many decisions are life decisions. What is important to you? But we do want to plan and save and invest so that we do not have a lack, and so that we are not driven to take unnecessary risks to chase the returns. In Money Hour, this philosophy informs our financial planning approach, which is to help clients to know if they have enough now and what they will have in the future. For those of you who have started working, you actually are starting to already accumulate in your CPF sum of money that is compounded at the CPF interest rates, some of which you can't touch in a special account, for example. So one of the things that Money Hour does is to actually use our own proprietary model to help you project what this might look like for you in terms of your retirement income in the future. And planning, we want to help clients to have enough both now and in the future. And all the other things, all the other practice areas or things in which you need to take care of in your financial planning are aligned to a wise money philosophy. So when investing, it is about getting the enough returns to live your fulfilling life so that you can be confident and at ease. We do not seek to maximize your returns. But and at the same time, for insurance, then it is about buying as much insurance as you need, but spending as little as you can. So our conviction really, sometimes people think that you're in the BTIR category. Buy term insurance and invest the rest. That means, yes, we do not think that insurance is a good it is good to buy insurance for the sake of both saving and investments, because insurance is a very expensive way of saving. But most importantly, we do not advocate whole life insurance because it is too expensive and you can never be fully covered for your needs if you try to use a whole life insurance that so-called gives you something back in order to cover your needs. The reason we advocate term is because it's the best way to be fully covered against the risk that can cause your financial plan to fail. And so what does comprehensive financial planning look like? Currently, we actually have this service out for about 4 months already, and it's currently free. Its price is $500 of GST, but currently it's being offered free as an introductory promotion, and also because of the times. And when you do comprehensive financial planning, you need to look at your financial health. Right, in terms of your debt, into your debt ratios, into your savings. Financial health is really just like physical health. When you go for a health check, now before you want to run a marathon, you need to know whether you are in good health. If you're not in good health, get into good health first before you go do the marathon. What is that marathon in our case? It is an investing marathon. And we need to know whether you have the sufficient insurance coverage for all the potential risks that can be realized, which can invade your assets or cause your income to stop. In retirement, for those who are a bit older, you'll be interested that we set up what is called your retirement income streams, starting with a safe retirement income flow that is incorporated or that incorporates CPF Life, which is a national annuity. And what is safe means that this source of income is very reliable, and in some cases they call it the paycheck. Now there's a layer of additional income which is drawn down from investments from the time that you start to need this income, and this drawdown some people call the paycheck. And in our financial planning, we split this up, and we have a methodology to see how do we do this layering of retirement income at different ages. And of course, because of our CPF analyzer, we also have some advice about dates that you should take note of, for example, relating to your CPF. But perhaps all this is a bit too much for a young person like you. You have so many years to retirement, and it's actually I don't really like to talk about retirement to young people because it just seems so irrelevant, right? And that is actually true, because financial planning is very much tied to retirement planning, but your goals are probably not really about retirement. And so if I ask you now, from now on, put aside money every month that you can only take out at 62 or 65, you might say, oh please, that's just too much of that fire, right? The fire movement. And yes, the standard advice is to make use of compounding years to start as early as possible. That remains theoretically true. But realistically speaking, you have goals in between. For example, if you're not married, when you get married, you need to buy a house. So your first goal might actually be that short-term need in order to finance your down payment. You might have other needs that are a result of saving that would actually enhance your life. Right? So I would not be surprised if you're not motivated actually to put money towards retirement, and I think that's fine. In fact, it can actually become bad if this is the standard advice I give to everyone, because you might suddenly end up liquidating your investments, not 30 years down the road as envisaged, but you actually do it like say 4 years. And what happens then is that if you are invested wrongly, that means you've taken too much risk, assuming the wrong time horizon, you might actually suffer a loss, and you cannot meet your goal, for example, in buying a house in those 4 years. So what then can I recommend for young people like you? I think the first thing is here, to concentrate really on building strong financial health and solid foundations. Now, this is just like building physical health. You need to start with the right habits. The first thing to do is to build an emergency fund. 6 months is what we recommend, but depending on what your situation is, you might go up to maybe about 12 months. For example, if you run a business, you might feel that the business has a greater risk, so you might want to take 12 months instead. That means build up an emergency buffer up to 12 months. This is in case business gets downturned and you don't have the income to finance your expenses. You might have a civil service job, then in which case perhaps you think that 6 months will be quite sufficient because your income is quite stable. When you have an emergency fund and you're invested, then you're ready to invest. Because once you have an emergency fund, no matter what happens, you don't have to liquidate your investments, possibly at a loss, in order to finance your lifestyle and your expenses. And I think the importance of an emergency fund has really been underscored in this COVID-19 situation, where pay cuts and job losses are very, very real. The saving habit of paying yourself first, that means set aside from your income before you even start spending and before you start paying your bills a certain amount that we recommend, at least about 20% for a young person. If you can't save 20% of your income, then perhaps you really need to look at your expenses and do a proper budgeting. Don't get into too much debt, right? Especially very high interest like credit card debt and all that. The compounding works that way as well. And we recommend always to give yourself some margin, and don't be too hard on yourself. In Money Hour, we actually propose a bad mood fund. Now, what is a bad mood fund? You earn money, put some, be it $20 or $50 a month, right? Put it away, put it in a drawer, don't touch it. So on a bad day, you've quarreled with your girlfriend or your boyfriend, or your boss is unreasonable, or your lecturer is being obnoxious or whatever, and you need to treat yourself to something, do some retail therapy or go out for a nice meal. You can then spend without guilt, and spend then out of your bad mood fund. So in Money, we actually incorporate this into our formal financial planning as something that will help our clients in the way that they treat their money. Now, if you remember the equation, the money equation, yes, the most important financial asset you have is actually yourself, your human capital. I encourage all of you to really build your career and increase your income as the main way in which you get rich. So whatever you do well, so that you will always be the one who, if there's a retrenchment exercise, you are not going to be the one there because you're adding value. If you have there's a promotion opportunity, you are the one who is always up for it. Then protect your income through low-cost insurance. And for young people, do make sure that your parents are covered as well, especially medically, because if they aren't, then you will could end up paying for very large medical costs. Right? And finally, I think Sergin mentioned this too, do learn as much as possible about finance, about investing, so that you know what to do when you're ready to invest, and just as equally important to know what not to do when people tell you to do something. So this is my recommendation for young people, and relating this to the money equation, here we are, your short-term equation. What you need to do to protect your most important financial asset, increase your savings, control your expenses, and really this left side of the equation is what actually helps you become rich and what you can better control. But it's very boring, I know. So most people don't really like to talk about this stuff, about working hard and saving and thrift and all that. But really, this is what helps you become rich versus the long term. If you don't get this part right, you will actually be gripped by money. And if you're trying to basically make a quick buck through the markets here, that actually you have no control. You should see instead this right side of the equation as something that helps you to stay rich. Yeah. And I talk about insurance. The point about insurance is really to stop your financial plan from failing. Now, Jack Ma had said in an interview that he doesn't know anyone that gotten very poor from buying insurance, but he knows people who have gotten poor from not buying insurance. This may not be totally true in Singapore's context because there's a lot of unsuitable insurance being sold. But generally speaking, Jack Ma is right in the sense that there are things that can either invade your current assets, namely huge hospitalization bills if you are not insured, or that which can cause you to lose your income, which we have said before is your most important financial asset. So the role of insurance is to protect this, because as you're planning towards your goal, you put in your whatever current assets you have, and then every month or every year you put in your savings towards the right side of the equation to build towards your future asset or a future goal. Once your income stops, what happens? You cannot finance your current expenses. And if you can't finance your current expenses, you would actually have to dip into your current assets in order to finance your current expenses. And I don't think anyone wants to do that, because this also means that you can't you can't reach your future goal, because your future goal, the nest egg will be much smaller. So what can cause your income to stop? Well, death, obviously. So if you have people, with their parents, or with in future, those of you who might have children, who will depend on you, on your income, then you need to protect against this. But you only need to protect it as far as you have an income. So if you're retiring at 62 or 65, you only need term insurance that covers you until 65 for most of us. A medical crisis like having cancer usually takes about 3 years of your productive life. So in that case, you do need to make sure you're covered for critical illnesses. Or you might have a non-critical illness, or you suffer an injury that prevents you from working and earning that income. So all this needs to be covered as well, to basically protect your most important financial asset, which is your income. And the great thing about doing this when you're young is that it is very cheap. So this is just a quick package that we put together. We don't manufacture these products. These are from previous insurance companies, and you're talking about $100+ per month. And this was, if you start earlier, the premiums remain level. That means they don't, most of them, except for hospitalization, the premiums don't go up with your age if you start early. So actually, when you're young, it's a great time to buy insurance because the premiums are low and you're still insurable. When you get a bit older, you get all kinds of health things that come in, and that might make you uninsurable. Okay, so the reason we talk so much about insurance, right, even though it's not very easy topic to talk about, is really because it is so important for you to prevent your plan from failing, and yet you do not need to pay arm and a leg in order to get there. So let me move then to investing. Now, so because of the philosophy of money, of balance, this is how Money Hours sees investing, and what we recommend to you to how to view investing. Now, successful investing to us is not about maximizing return or even maximizing the return for each unit of risk. Rather, we define successful investing as one that allows you to achieve your goals and to live the life you want. And what this means is that we seek sufficiency and reliability of these returns instead of maximizing your goals, or maximizing returns. The implication for this is as follows. These are some things that you want to keep in mind in investing. I think they've been mentioned before. First, you need to stay invested for the long term. Don't move in and out of the markets. The second is that it is actually quite difficult to beat the market consistently through active management. And third, please keep your costs low because every percentage point that you give out in terms of costs actually takes away from your return exponentially. What we've learned in history is that, yes, a major crisis happens now and then. We seem to be going through one now. But no matter how bad a crisis, the market always recovers. There are two things that I want to put forward to in this argument. And as I have shared, I'm a history student, but I've also learned in finance about how the economic logic works, and I want to put forward to you both economic logic and empirical evidence. Okay, so the economic logic of why the stock market goes up in the long run is because you need to understand what you're investing in when you invest in a stock. A stock is a part ownership of a company. It's also called equities because you take the ownership and you divide it up equally into shares, equal shares, and then how many shares you own, it depends on how many shares you buy, and that makes you a shareholder of a certain percentage. And where do the earnings of a company come from? It's actually what's the return come from, ultimately based on the earnings of the company. And earnings is ultimately driven by demand. And demand in the aggregate in the world is driven by population growth and the increase in standard of living over time, because this is how human aspiration works. Now, do demand and earnings go down in the short term? Absolutely. And what is the reason that they go down? Different reasons at different times. But because of this logic of population growth in the long term leading to demand in aggregate going up, leading to companies being able to earn in aggregate, the stock market that reflects those earnings always go up in the long term. And I had also shared a video beforehand about this beautiful green matrix diagram, which actually show you that empirically speaking as well, in the last almost 100 years of returns of broad markets, such as those represented by the S&P 500, which is a US market, the stock market has always gone up as long as you have sufficient time to remain invested. So I don't have time to go through this now, but please look at the video that we have on this. However, there's a note of caution here that this idea of staying invested for positive long-term return works only for the broad markets insofar as our evidence is concerned. Every time someone says stay invested for a long term, the evidence that is used is usually by empirically, usually it is a broad market index, such as the S&P 500 or the MSCI World. And if you follow what I say about economic logic, this makes sense, right? Because global population always increases, but not every country's population always increases. Standard of living generally go up, but not equally across, not equally in every country. And that is why in Money Hour we believe in investing in a diversified manner. In terms of it being difficult to beat the stock market, I have here basically the performance of active managers versus the index. Again, the index is the market. That means it's the participation of all the investors, millions of investors in the stock market. And active managers try in various ways to beat the market. For example, looking at what's happening in the economic situation, or when it goes down, you try to sell before it goes down and come back in to catch bottoms and tops and all this. Many professionals are trying to do this, but this is the report card from 5 years as of 2018, 1 year before. That means is the beginning of 2018 to December 1st. This is the performance of the percentage of fund managers, active fund managers, or fund managers general, that managed to beat the broad index performance. Then there's over a 3-year time frame, 5-year time frame, 10-year time frame, and 15-year time frame. And what you see here is that the percentage of that most fund managers do not actually manage to beat the market. It is a minority. It's below 15%, and in some of the time frames here, actually even below 20% or 10%. So most active fund managers, and these are professionals, do not manage to beat the market. It's very, very difficult to do so. Just trying and based on this track record. Now, of course, you can tell me, oh, so why don't we just select these 35%, 21, 17, 14, or 8% of managers? If we can pick these right managers to do it, then surely we'll be fine. Now, so here I show you the next chart, which is welcome to the class of 2014. Now, many of you are JC students. Many of you may be top of your class, but this is not school, because these are the markets. And you might remain the top student or in the top 25% all the way from Set 1 until O levels, but it is not so in the fund management world. The class of 2014, the top performing fund managers, means top 25% of fund managers, we had 571 fund managers. But by the time you come to the second year, only less than half of them of the original cohort actually remain. And by the time you come to 4 or 5 years, actually only 1 out of 571 of the original that were outperforming or the top performing actually remain top performing. So your probability is actually less than 0.2% of picking that right fund manager. And again, this shows that it is difficult to beat the market, but even those who do cannot do it consistently. Just now, when Tim was saying that it is time in the market that matters, not timing the market, this is part of the reason. And yes, actually, you can time the market, but you just can't time the market all the time, right? As this persistence chart shows you. Very quickly, I know we're running out of time. Just now we talked about passive investing, which is really following the broad index. Active investing, generally talking about forecasting, market timing, but also in terms of picking individual stocks that we believe are mispriced for a reason. Yeah, in the between, I need to introduce this term called evidence-based, which is actually done by dimensional fund advisors whose funds Money Hour use in our portfolios. And this is a very quick comparison of their strategies. I'll leave this slide here, but perhaps just hear me describe how it goes. Passive fund basically follows the broad market. So whatever the market does, it does, and the fees are very low because the fund manager just buys the stocks in proportion to the market weights of that particular index. So when the market goes up, you see the S&P 500 index goes up, your fund that's invested in it, for example, a Vanguard fund that's invested in that index will go up, and all that minus a certain tracking error, and minus fees, which tend to be very, very low, right? Now, what Dimensional does is actually to, based on their evidence, which I'll describe later, they take the broad market index and then tilt it a little bit towards certain dimensions of return. Okay, and let me describe what these dimensions of return are. But quickly, Dimensional is a huge fund manager based in the US with 38 years of history. You would not have heard of them, but they're actually probably amongst the 10 largest fund managers. And it's because they were mainly in the institutional space, and they only came to Singapore a few years ago. Firstly for high net worth clients, and then only about 2 years ago for retail clients. And they actually base their strategies on the work of many Nobel economic prize winners. Some of them you would know, or you can find out about, like Eugene Farmer would talk about efficient market hypothesis, and these are really fathers of the modern finance. And their research again has a combination when they pick up these dimensions of return about what dimensions or what tilts would give a portfolio higher expected return than in the long run compared to the market. Expected return is just a very fancy way of saying average returns, right? So, and these are the three tilts. Firstly, they tilt towards smaller size companies or smaller caps rather than the big caps. They tilt towards value, stocks that display value rather than growth or so-called expensive stocks. And they tilt towards companies that are profitable rather than not profitable. I think the profitability is relatively easy to understand. So perhaps I just very quickly flash the theoretical foundation. This is a representation of the way that you value any asset, right? And when you value stocks, the price is a function of the book value. That means what you already, the net assets that you currently own, and a discounted future cash flows. Now, this is something you could look up about discounted cash flow the accounting or simply, but just basically means that what you would pay for a company today is what you are going to receive as a result of this company's earnings in the future, but at a certain discount rate that accounts for risk, right? So when you actually shift this equation around, you realize that the discount rate, which is equivalent to your required return, actually goes up if the size is smaller, or when there's profitability, or when there's relative price decreases. It's a bit technical, so perhaps those of you who are interested can ask for the slides, and you can go through them. And of course, if you come to Money, our advisors can go through those with you. But empirically speaking as well, these tilts have over the long term also given superior return, and this is the excess return over the market that has been seen when these premiums come up. These premiums, you don't get them all the time. There are some years or even some multiple years when they don't appear, but when they do appear, they are meaningful and they have been pervasive. Yeah. So these are Money Hour portfolios I won't go through. You can find it on our website. And this is something that is something that we want to get you started. And this is actually a special time for you to be able to invest in these funds through Money Hour portfolios at 0% advisory fee. And this is the promo code just for you, MO Money Hour Team Gan Math 1. Right. So this is for
Thanks.
yeah, those of you who are here. Yeah, those of you who are here, and for students and their parents. This is not for the public, and so but this is for you if you manage to take action now. Now I know that whatever I said sounds sometimes a bit boring, right? You know, long-term investing, all that. And in fact, I think that it is totally reasonable for a young person to go and try all kinds of other things, and you know, try to learn, and yes, you know, go and pick the stocks, go and do that trading and invest, because you need to learn and get it out of your system. But I just hope that this gives you a perspective of what how the reliable investing over the long term can look like, so that when you you have different a different perspective that you can come back to that can help to build your wealth in the long term. I think that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Shun Ting. Actually, when you share about the promo for Team Gamev student, some actually asked me whether is there any commission. I just want to be transparent to you. There's no commission. I didn't even know that this promotion was like gonna be exclusively for my audience. So I'm like very honored. Yeah. I think So like we just gonna kick start the Q&A session. So Sir Jing, can you unmute yourself? I think a lot of you have already like sent in pretty interesting questions. So we need to like look at them. So let's look at some of these questions here. I try to group them as like the similar ones, so that this Justin Ho asked at this age and point. All right. So he's asking that is it better to be like investing yourself instead of like in stock, so that in the future you increase your earning power, making your investment more significant in the future? In essence, invest yourself in yourself, but rather than investing in assets. So who want to take the ball?
I can.
Okay.
So yeah, I completely agree with what Justin is saying. Remember, during my previous Q&A, I was talking about the human capital part of it. So yeah, like by investing in your own education, as a young adult, you are going to massively increase your human capital, and for all you know, if you become a successful business owner, you may not even need to be investing like in the way that I'm talking about, or like even in the way that Chun Ting talked about with Money Owl. So yeah, by all means, I think the most important investment at this point in time for most of the people in the audience would be to really just increase your human capital by educating yourself. Yeah.
How about Chun Ting? Chun Ting, what do you think about this question here? I think it's a very interesting question.
Yeah. So I guess it a bit depends on how long and all that, right? Because you can be a permanent student for some people, and also I think the most important thing is that education is not just about earning power, right? So education is obviously about learning life skills and learning and really knowledge about what you life skills in terms of like thinking skills, in terms of organizing your time and all that, and of course increasing knowledge and in an area of interest. So and a part of education is also, I would argue that part of education includes financial education, right? So yes, by all means, I mean, if you I would I'm biased to saying that if you have an education opportunity that might require some investment, for example, an overseas education, but is at a good university, yes, to take that. If that is a specific question, a specific situation, yeah. So I guess it's really about that life decision, rather than just the one.
Okay. Yes. Thanks for answering, Chun Ting and So Jing, let's look at the next question. So this is more of a technical question, but I think we should just address this. Maximus was asking, right? He would like to ask a question. After listening to your talk about compounding about STI, I went to check the stock, but it says like 2,596. So if I want to start investing in STI, do I need to 2,000 upfront? Like, yeah. So Jing, I think you can answer this question. I think it's just a yes or no. Yeah.
So the quick answer is no, because so when you invest in the STI, you're not actually investing in the STI itself. You're going to be investing in a fund that tracks the STI. Now, in Singapore's case, there are two main funds that track the STI, and these are also traded on the stock exchange. One is called the Spider SPDR STI ETF. The other is called the Nikko Asset Management STI ETF. So they have, I cannot remember off the top of my head what their share prices are, but I think it's somewhere between $2 and $3 per share. So in Singapore stock market, you have to invest in lots of 100 share each. So a minimum outlay would be about $200 to $300.
Okay, great. I think the next two questions are technically about the different types of investments. So I'm just going to flash the two questions, then probably we can just discuss as a whole. So the subsequent one is what are the alternative to index investing? and what is suitable for different profiles of investors. This is one. And the next one is, what are your thoughts about robo-investing? Is this more advantageous than investing personally? So Angela asked this and Elisa asked this. I guess what they're trying to ask is like, so for Elisa, I probably like, like people talk about investing in Forex or like trading or like let's say buying property. Property, most people deem it as an investment as well. So what are alternative in that sense? Yeah. And one of it is also robo investing. So I think we can just discuss this as a whole. Yeah. So Chun Ting, do you want to start first?
Yeah. I guess if we need to maybe have this concept of asset classes first. So asset classes are, for example, I'll just name some. Equities are one, or stocks are one. Bonds and asset class, and these are financial market instruments. These are financial instruments. Of course, you have other things like property. You have gold, which can be in a financial instrument as well, or physical, and there are all these different asset classes. So if you're talking about investing across these asset classes, this is quite a different. It is quite a deep conversation because there are different dynamics that affect each of these markets. So I will make a case for financial investing, financial market investing, as especially in stocks, as being the most reliable way of building the long-term return that you need. Because when you invest in the financial markets, especially stocks, you're actually investing in the worlds, especially with the globally diversified. You're investing in actually the world economic growth. You are investing in the hopefully the best companies around the world, and you're investing in real stuff. Right? So there's a lot of stuff that is, especially during the global financial crisis, that is, they're not real stuff. They're basically bets, right? And it's not backed by good cash flows and all that. So now, property investing, actually, if you do a study, the return of property is more or less it's the same as stocks minus leverage. Right? So that is the interesting part. But when it comes to leverage, then it's a totally different ballgame, because remember we talked about your it's not just about maximizing return, right? So what happens if in downturn? Are you able to afford servicing that mortgage? And also, of course, a lot of times property is very expensive. You actually put all your lump sum in there, and what if this doesn't work out, right? So there's always that issue of balancing your risk. So we talk about the need, ability, and willingness to take risk. Yeah. So within financial investing and say stock market investing, what are the alternatives to index investing? There is active investments. So there are different types of strategies that are posed by active managers. And just now in my slide, I was saying that it's not that it's impossible to beat the market, but it's not easy. Right. So the other alternative is the sort of in between that I've shown you, which is the evidence-based investing, done by dimensional fund advisors. So I think so I hope I answered that in terms of the overall global portfolio of possible investments, and why financial markets must have a role, which is now become more accessible than ever in your wealth accumulation strategy. And within that, besides index investing, there's evidence-based investing, and there's active investing with various strategies. First, I can stop here first and pass over to Serging.
Yeah, Serging. Yeah.
Sure. So the actually, I have nothing much to add, because I think Chun Ting covered most of the bases for the first.
Sorry.
Oh, good.
Just to be, what about robo investing then? Like, is this like what do you think about it then, Serging?
Yeah, I think I mentioned like early on in this whole conversation that I think robo advisors have been a great invention for investors in Singapore. So my thoughts in general about robo advisors are that it enables an investor to so I'm going to compare robo advisors with investing personally, right? So I think one of the very first good things is that it enables an individual to be much easier. It's a lot easier to be diversified through a robo advisor as compared to investing yourself, because sometimes some of the robo-advisors gives you access to investment vehicles that you may not be able to get easily as an individual. For example, in the case of dimensional fund advisors, which I consider personally to be one of the best passive fund managers there are in the world, you can, as an individual, you cannot access dimensional funds products. You can only do so through financial advisors or robo-advisors. At least that's the case in Singapore. So robo-advisors gives people access to financial products. That's the first. Then the second thing is that it also helps them to rebalance automatically. So what some robo-advisors do, they provide a strategic asset allocation depending on the needs that you want. And this strategic asset allocation is based upon not just the needs that you have, but also like they give you this allocation because they use historical evidence. And historical evidence says that, over a very long period of time, if we have this collection of stocks and bonds or other asset classes, this is the expected return that you could get with a very high level of certainty. Not 100% certain, but with a high enough level of certainty. But the thing about the strategic asset allocation is that rebalancing is necessary for you to achieve the historical returns that have been produced in the past. So what robo-advisors do is it helps automatically rebalance the assets. And that is actually a hassle if you were to do it personally. Yeah. So I think those are like the key advantages. Again, like I think that my previous role at the Motley Fool Singapore, we serve what we call DIY investors, do-it-yourself investors, people who really like to take charge of their own finances and make their own decisions.
People like me.
Like Tim, and myself, But then again, there's also other people who just do not have any interest in doing so, and I think that for people like that, robo-advisors are a fantastic solution.
Right. Okay, I think the next portion is a very interesting one. This is about timing the market. But before that, I want to stress. I think Chunting would not send you the slides unless you request, because she said that she doesn't want it to be so spammy, right? Was it, Chunting?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but you can send it to send an email to us, and we'll do that.
Correct.
But can I just quickly put in some thoughts about robo investing?
Yeah.
Because Money Owl, we don't actually say that we are a robo investor, robo advisor. Robo advisors actually started in the US with Betterment, a company called Betterment, about 15 years ago or so.
So long.
Not very long lah. Right?
15, right? You said.
Is it 15 or 10? Let me think. 2010. Okay, not so long. Yeah. Okay.
10 years. Okay.
10 years. Yeah. So Betterment and in a sense, they're not invested in a financial crisis until now. So that's interesting. Now in Singapore, it's really the last few years, and there's so many of these platforms in Singapore actually. And actually, I think it's just far too many, And we recently actually had one actually closed down, right? That actually raises some questions. Now, robo advisors are they call them financial advisors, but actually a lot of time it's more a robo platform. It's actually a platform for fund management platform, and robo advisors are only investment, right? So and what are the advantages? The advantages are, like Serging mentioned, you can start with very small amounts, right? And then you can usually access a globally diversified portfolio. And if you don't want to speak to anyone, you can just do it online. And they're open 24/7. So that is the advantages. Now, what are some of the disadvantages? The disadvantages really that there is actually no human advice involved. And as we discussed earlier, you do need someone to help you understand your need, ability, and willingness to take risks. And when markets are going down, you need the human wisdom that cannot be totally replicated by algorithms. At least that is what Money Owl believes. That's a big part of it. In robo-advisors, often it seems to be passive because they use passive instruments like ETFs, but actually behind it is very active. They do a lot of allocation shifts and all that. So you need to take note what is the investment philosophy of the robo-advisor. And if you use ETFs, there are some disadvantages of ETFs. They are not obvious in the costs. For example, dividend withholding tax. This is if you invest in US ETF, and most people invest in US ETF because that's the most liquid. You actually, a part of your dividends, they are actually being taxed at US, and as a result, you don't get that. You don't get the full return, but this cost you don't see, is implicit. When you exchange into US dollars, there's forex bid-ask spread, and sometimes you have to get fractionalized shares when you use ETFs, right? So and so that actually raises some question mark over legal ownership, because if you know what it is to earn one share, but what does it mean to own 0.1 of a share? So when Smartly closed down, actually there's no other way but to actually force sell everything, and then what happens to the losses and all that, right? So there's a bit of that issue. And if you're investing in bonds, these are not Singapore dollar. And if you're a Singapore-based investor and you're investing in bonds and it's foreign currency, you're actually not taking bond risk, you're actually taking a currency risk, right? So it's actually messes up your risk profile altogether. And I think maybe the last point is that robo-advisors, a lot of them are actually VC funded, and actually it worries me because we're not sure about the commitment sometimes to Singapore market and to the long term. Yeah, so those are some of the disadvantages. For investing personally, I think actually overall speaking, if you think that you do not need advice, you do not need someone to risk coach you, you are able to handle your transaction costs. So especially if you have a large amount of money, you don't pay so high commission or that. Actually, investing directly in is actually not bad. You know, let's say you can invest into a ETF fund in the US for equities, not for bonds. You actually your cost will be much lower if you are you have the time, interest, and ability to do that personal investing. For such clients, actually, we say if the main thing is that, go ahead yourself. Yeah.
So just to so some of you are asking, basically after the end of this webinar, we'll be sending you Money Hours email. If you need a slide, you can just request from them straight, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And also we will include all of you in the mailing list for the Good Investor and also the Money Hour. But if you want to exclude your name from their mailing list, you just let them know when they send an email. Just unsubscribe from the mailing list lah. Okay, by default, I think most of you will want to follow up with the stuff. So just by default, if not, you just unsubscribe by yourself. Okay.
Yep.
I think the next slide will be the interesting one because we are talking about time market now. I'm aware that actually for Chun Ting and Surging, they have common grounds when it comes to like investing, right? We all talk about long term. We talk about not timing the market and stuff like that. But you all also have your difference actually. So I want to bring this difference out. So maybe you for this slide here, which you can see, right? So Brian Lim asked, from a mathematical standpoint, does average up makes more sense than averaging down, especially in the market climate? How? Then Joanne Lim asked how to buy low and sell high in stocks. So I think with these two questions in mind, probably you could couple it with like what are your different views on this. I don't think your views on this is different. I think the way you approach the market, the way you buy stocks and invest is different. So maybe you want to share. Sergin, you want to start first?
Can so I realized that I have not actually mentioned much about how I'm investing. So just very quickly, I like to invest in individual companies, not like a broader market, because I think that I'm able to do it pretty well. So and I've been investing since October 2010, and by finding individual companies, it has served me well. So I intend to continue with that. And my investment framework is basically can be summarized as trying to find good companies with really good long-term growth prospects and investing in them, in them for the very long run. So from that perspective, the question about averaging up or down, I personally like to average up because I like to add to my winners, which equates to averaging up. And the reason is because but there's a caveat. I average up only after a certain amount of time has passed, typically a few years. And the reason I do so is because if a share's price is able to increase over a multi-year period, chances are it is because its business has done well. And I think that businesses that do well, they tend to continue winning and continue doing well. And so that's the foundation for why I prefer to average up rather than down. But I would say also that there is no mechanical rule that I follow, because I am investing in individual companies. So it is really very much a case by case basis. I look at each individual company and I think that how does its current price look like in relation to its future growth prospects, and then that gives me an idea of like, should I be averaging up or down for that particular stock at any point in time. Yeah. So that is the first. That's what I think I can share for this first question without like really going into the weeds. Yeah.
Okay. What about you, Chunting, for the first question?
Yeah. We average down and we average up. That is the way to go, because the investment approach, actually what matters most is actually time, right? So you have in your exponential sharing about the exponential growth and compounding, it is actually time that makes you the money. Now, it doesn't mean that the price point doesn't matter, but the problem is you do not know when it is the low and when is the high, right? And so what do you need to do? You need to keep that line in the water, right? So that you can reap the returns over the long run. So let's say if you start, the best thing is to start as early as possible, right? So that's why in the promotion I sent you just now, we said the second best time to invest is today. It's an African proverb that says that the second best time to plant a tree is today. The best time was 20 years ago, right? And this is about time, right? So if you have a lump sum, invest it as early as possible. But most of us, besides having to invest what we currently have, or a portion of what we currently have, you also want to invest regularly to build your wealth as you earn an income in your savings. Now, and when you do a financial plan, you look at your time horizon and you look at over this time, there is an average return of the market. So this is the average return that is applied to your investments that will get you to a certain goal. So then you apply this investment regularly, whether the market is up or whether the market is down, you just stay disciplined and do that. Now, having said that, when the market is really down, it's almost like a cheap sale, right? So this is where you have all the dry powder that you keep aside. Remember, so for us, for example, we ask you to invest maybe about 75% of your surplus and about 75% of your annual savings. And if you get a bonus, maybe about 50%. Okay? And the rest is because you want to do something with your life now, and also to keep dry powder. Dry powder is for times like this when the market has come up quite significantly from the peak, about 20%. At some point, it was 30%. And this is where you put in extra on top of your regular savings or regular investing to give a booster shot, as it were, to your long-term financial plan. And you can do this because you already have your emergency fund. You can do this because you already have your regular plan, and then you treat it like a cheap sale and you go in and do that. Yeah. So the related to this is the fact that it's very, very hard to catch the bottom and or the top of the market, because you never know. The market can keep on going up even when you feel that it is, you're worried when it goes up and you're worried when it goes down. In the 2008 financial crisis, I was sharing with Tim and Sergey earlier that in a fund management house, people were just thinking the fundamentals are not there, cannot be to go back into the market. At that time, S&P 500 was 666 at the lowest in March 2009, and yet people didn't feel that it was time because the fundamentals were so bad. And you have fund managers who keep 25% cash, so then they lose out all the return, because when the recovery comes, it tends you don't know when it comes, and you can end it comes so fast, and you actually end up missing a lot of the part of the rebound.
So, anything to add on?
Nope.
Nope. Okay, great. We move on to the next part. I think, hold on now. I do not know whether I compile it properly. Okay. Oh, yes. So, how do we consider an insurance plan to be suitable? Maybe, Chunting, you want to answer this
Yeah.
from
Okay.
my main goal. Yeah.
Yeah. So the uh, the starting point of insurance should be from your needs and not from the product. So in the industry, unfortunately, a lot of time you're being sold a product, right? So I think the main thing is to understand the role of insurance. The role of insurance is for protection. And the role of insurance is to protect you against things that cause financial hardship or that cause your financial plan to fail, such that either you or your loved ones cannot continue living life as normally as possible, right? So then you start from the needs that you have, which is sort of dependent on a bit of like life stage. So some of the risks that you have to cover against are basically the two broad categories I mentioned in my slide, which is actually loss of income is the main one, and the other part is big hospitalization expenses. So when you look at loss of income, then you need to understand what are the things that cause you to lose this income. And I broadly mentioned a few things. One is death, obviously. What is death? So if you're dependent, you need to be covered. Now, what do you need? It is you need to be covered for as long as you have an income. If you die today and nobody misses you, I'm not talking about emotionally, right? I'm talking about financially. If nobody misses your income, right? Then actually you don't need death coverage. So for example, if I'm already retired at 70 years old, right? And my kids are all independent or then nobody misses their income, then actually I don't need to have a payout upon death, right? So what this means is that I can then lower my cost of insurance by having coverage only up to my retirement age of 65 years old. That's why we always advocate term insurance because it's so much cheaper than right. So these are some of the things. You can actually use Money Hour's insurance um, uh, needs analysis robot for free, and it tells you it starts from the need, and then it calculates the amount of coverage you need. Right, the amount of coverage you need is a function of how long you need to be covered for. So if I die today and I still have my children are not going to be working for 20 years, I need to cover 20 years of expenses for them, for example. If there is a education, I want to support for education needs, then I need to put that into my plan as well, right? And then it basically these are some of the principles, like, and we have certain recommendations about what would be sufficient, but you can use it for free on the in our insurance website, and of course if you like you can then make inquiry.
Yeah, maybe I can share also lah. So like the stage of my life where there are a lot of changes. Same thing. So like let's say my wife actually stopped working, then I'm the only sole breadwinner. So I actually told Chunting I got this insurance policy where in the event where I can't work or let's say I lose my voice because I'm a teacher, then they will actually supplement my income on a regular basis. Yeah. So me and my wife we decided that is what is needed. Then that and also like let's say now we have a new baby. Also we just bought new policy to supplement it. So like these are all the different stages of life which you need to see whether it is deemed suitable. So I think Money Hour, you can just get Money Hour as advice. It's good.
You can look it up on our website and read about that. Yeah.
So the next question is directed to Chunting. So what is your view on the current market situation? Do you think that we are facing similar condition as that of Great Depression century ago? Brian Lim.
Okay. Thanks for that. I think there's always a market crisis happens once in a while, and every time is always a bit different. The speed at which the market plunged in this year is quite unprecedented, and it's really can be quite scary, right? And that's when we in Money Hour we had to come in to remind our clients of the two things, the thing about economic logic which I described just now, as well as the actual empirical evidence. Now, why did the market react this way? Actually, there are some technical factors. The technical factors are what we think is actually what we've heard on the market is actually about leverage hedge funds, right? Leverage hedge funds that have to sell because they are like 10 times leverage. They borrow and then they invest, and so when for fund managers, when your investors need to redeem because of whatever reason, then you just have to sell down. And when you sell down, ultimately how are prices determine? Supply and demand, right? So when you sell a lot, then it actually goes down. Now, the nature of the COVID crisis today is actually a real economy crisis, right? Because it's to do with the fact that people don't have demand because they can't work and they can't come out and consume and all that. And I would say that this will pass, right? At some point, it will pass. Like all crises, they will pass. Before I go to the Great Depression, let me talk about the global financial crisis about 10 years ago. The global financial crisis was a banking crisis. It's a banking crisis. And in this banking crisis, what happened was that the banks had too much nonsense on their books, right? And it's all these CDOs and all that kind of thing. And so when the banks are insolvent, then they cannot lend, and then they have to be rescued, and that causes actually the problem in the financial markets. Now, the Great Depression had a combination of actually a banking crisis and actually an economic crisis. And what was really significant in the Great Depression was that there was not fast enough government intervention in terms of be it fiscal policy or monetary policy. And that's why it took quite a long time. And in fact, for the stock market, if you invested at the height, I think it was 1929, yeah. Then you're gonna, I think it was 40% down that year or something. It would take you 15 years before you get back to the point when you need to stay invested for 15 years, then you don't lose money. I think I said that in the video. When it came to the global financial crisis, it took some time for governments to realize this, but they came in with action to rescue the banks, and then it took a few more months, about 6 months, to get through that system to get through, and the markets rebounded very strongly in 2009. Now, in this crisis, what I see is very early and very massive government intervention. Firstly, to make sure that the financial markets are functioning because of these big sell downs that I talk about, and you can see signs of it working, right? So that then you have governments also coming in. So if you want to talk about it, I would say that it feels a bit like war, right? Currently, everyone's in war, but we are all on the same side, right? All the governments on the same side. And I've lost count how many trillions of dollars have been pumped in already. Yeah, so I would say that conditions-wise, I would say no. I would say that we shouldn't be facing the Great Depression, if for nothing, only because of the commitment of governments to not just sort of let it be. Yeah.
Okay. Let's look at the last two questions. So this is asked by an anonymous. A binary trading and Bitcoin is considered investing. Why should and shouldn't anyone get involved in this? Shajing, maybe you want to take.
If I understand binary trading correctly, the proper term should be binary options. I think I don't have any kind things to say about binary options. I think it's a pure gambling tool, and that people should really just stay away from binary options. Bitcoin is a bit more interesting, but I personally don't consider it investing, because for me, investing means purchasing an asset that is producing earnings and cash flows. Bitcoin in itself does not produce anything. So it's the same as with gold as well. So I don't invest in like gold and Bitcoin and other stuff that do not produce earnings and cash flows, because I don't really know how to value them. So from that perspective, I don't consider Bitcoin an investment. But I think that from a technological point of view, the underlying tech of Bitcoin, which is oh, the term escapes me, blockchain technology.
Blockchain. Yeah.
Yeah, blockchain. Thanks. I think it is fascinating, and young kids like you guys should be trying to learn more about this, because I think that there could be really interesting applications for blockchain technology in the future. And so for the second question, why should or shouldn't anyone get involved in this? I think I mentioned binary option is really gambling. So I don't think anybody should be involved in that. And then for Bitcoin, yeah, I think I shared my thoughts.
Yeah. Shouldn't you anything to add on for this part here? Bitcoin and
There is a core thing that you should do, which is which is to invest properly in real earnings towards your plan, and you should not gamble that away. But by all means, go and try something, but don't lose your pants, right? So the danger of all this is really that you get carried away, right? But to me, it's the same as whether you buy 4D or you go casino. That if you can control yourself, then just have some fun. I mean, I'll treat it in the same way as going to a casino. But don't, for goodness sake, don't RSP, regular savings plan into 4D. You wouldn't never do that, right? Or you should never do that, because treat this as potential huge gains for very small amount. Then you're all right, right? The problem is with leverage. And options, when you invest in one dollar options, like the delta and the gamma, which is actually the first derivative and second derivative, or the movement in the stock, right, affects your option values tremendously. And therefore you actually can lose everything, or even more than everything, right, in options trading. So it's actually very difficult. During the financial crisis or just before, a lot of private bankers were selling this thing called accumulators. Right, accumulators is you sell calls and you sell puts to buy calls, or one of the other things, or the other way around. And what is the term for it? Accumulators is actually called I kill you later. So because what happened is that when they sell puts, actually, sorry. So when the stock market dropped, they realized that they have to keep paying up and keep paying up. And a lot of people lost huge fortunes because of that. So like, by all means, like I say, young people should definitely go and learn about how options are traded and all that, because they actually have very valuable financial information in there. And but just realize that their options have inherent leverage, and they're derivative. Bitcoin is, I mean, crypto is not based on real earnings. So I also say it's not investing, but but it would be more speculation. Yeah.
all right. Thanks, Shunting. I just got one very interesting question, but we just quickly go through the next one. I think this is from Maximus. So how do other countries index compare to STI, and what is the difference? So also, what are the possibility or advantage or disadvantage of investing in overseas index rather than STI? Maybe Sejing, you want to chip in?
Can, sure. So there are many countries in the world that with functioning stock markets. So there are many different types of indexes to compare against the STI. So I don't think there's a general way to answer this. But let's say if I talk about, let's use the US, because it's one of the world's largest economy. So if you look at, say, the US index compared to the STI, the US, there are three big indexes: the S&P 500, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, and the NASDAQ. The S&P 500 is more commonly used as the barometer for the US market. That it contains about 500 companies. So in the first thing, you can see STI has 30 companies, S&P 500 has about 500. And then there is also, because of the composition of the types of companies that are in the United States market, the types of companies are also very different. So like in the STI, is dominated by the three local banks, DBS, OCBC, UOB, and then Singtel. I think collectively, these four companies make up maybe about 60% or so of the index, off the top of my head. Whereas in the S&P 500 is a lot more diversified. There are 500 companies. I think the top five make up maybe 20% or so of the index at the moment. So there's the difference in terms of concentration, the number of companies, and as well as the composition. There's a lot more like technology companies in the S&P 500 as compared to, say, the Straits Times Index. So and then you notice that if you go to another country's index, you notice that, hey, then again it's very different. So let's say if you go to Australia, which has the ASX 200 index, that is their main index. It's a lot of banks, so it's very similar to Singapore. There are 4 big banks in Australia, and then there's a lot of like mining and commodities and natural resource companies in Australia, simply because the country depends a lot on mining and natural resources as part of the economy. So naturally, you get a lot of such companies in there. So I would say in general that a country's index would be different compared to the STI based upon like the types of companies or like the composition of the economy for that particular country. And then the possible disadvantages of investing in the overseas index rather than STI. So I think the possible advantages is that you get exposure to economic sectors that you do not get with the STI. For example,
Oops, Surging
frozen. Oops. Okay. Chun Ting, you have anything to chip in for this one?
Yeah.
E-commerce and
Hey, hold on, Surging. Surging, hello.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah. As in, your video should chop off halfway just now. It was
sorry. I just got a message that says my internet connection is unstable. Apologize for that. Where do you guys lose me?
Exposure to different sectors, for example.
Okay, so for example, like there's like e-commerce, there's social media, like biotech. All these are all not represented in the Straits Times Index, and these are some of the sectors that you can get exposed to if you're investing in the indexes of other countries. The disadvantage, I think, is that you get you're exposing yourself to currency risk. You don't really know. I don't think anybody really knows how a country's currency will move relative to the Singapore dollar. So you're exposing yourself to that kind of currency risk. But I would say, by and large, that it makes more sense to diversify, to be investing globally as opposed to just focusing on our own home country. Yeah.
Yeah, Chun Ting, you were saying that you have.
Yeah, so I agree about so STI. In fact, investing in Singapore, it's actually a home bias, right? Because you feel that you feel safer with it because you think you know the companies, because you think you have the exposure. But actually, if you think about it, you're exposing yourself to actually 30 companies, and it's actually a selection. You're exposing yourself also specifically to the Singapore economy, to which you are already exposed in your human capital. Right, so when the economy goes down, you might already be affected in terms of your job, in terms of your income, and all that. And on top of that, you are sort of doubling down in that sense. So from a sort of overall portfolio point of view, there is that perspective, yeah. And a lot of it is very dependent on a few sectors, which are all the same cyclical sectors. The exposure when you have globally diversified is that it doesn't matter which country performs and outperforms. If you look at, go and look at money on our website, there's about diversification. Actually, the Singapore index is very small compared to the world, right? And in the world, and when you look at which countries perform better in 1 year other than other, it's totally random, right? There's no pattern about it. So why not own the world in that sense? So that it doesn't really, then you don't have to go and worry about who is going to recover better from the COVID and all that. And so a lot of it is questionable judgment-wise anyway. And as for currency, I guess for equities, I'll have a slightly different view in the sense that actually over time, equities does give a good diversification in my view. Like in the recent downturn, actually Singapore-based investors have benefited from some exposure to US, because actually US dollar strengthened, right? And over time it sort of averages out in terms of the return. Yeah.
Okay. Anything to add on? If not, I think the last question is a good question to end today's webinar. I think everyone is tired already. You can still take one more question, right? Chun Ting and Surjin.
Yeah.
Can I? Oh, yeah. Yeah, money hour must be an hour, right? So right, Keynes is asking actually from what is said so far, is it necessary to go to finance school, to be a good investor? As in, are the quantitative methods taught in finance school really helpful in giving an advantage over layman investors? Maybe I don't know. Chun Ting, you want to start first on this?
Okay. You have a very big name, of course, being after
I noticed that as well.
Lord
Yes,
Maynard Keynes.
this name,
Yeah.
right? When my wife is doing the admin, she will also say the same thing. Just to let you know, like he told me that he wants to go LSE. I remember he told me. Yeah. But he's a
Nice.
very bright kid. He's a very bright kid. Yeah.
Awesome.
Lord Maynard Keynes is a Cambridge guy, right? If I'm not wrong. Yeah. So, and in fact, I think he was quite instrumental in some of the 1930s stuff there. Okay. So
He was.
yeah. This way, I think that if you want to be the one who is actually investing yourself, it's good to understand as much as possible. Finance school, well, my own bias is that your education is about training of the mind, right? And you do need to be relatively numerate to understand finance. It's good to be numerate anyway. It's good to learn how to read financial statements so that you understand companies. But I learned my sort of technical finance through the CFA course, which you can take anyway without being sort of being in finance school itself. So I would, are they really helpful in giving advantage over layman investors? To me, no, because I've seen all the people trying to do that over the years, and actually I think it's a bit of waste in society that our best mathematicians and all that, instead of being engineers to build real stuff, actually go into finance to build financial engineering things that,
Yeah, but the engineer also. Yeah, I got the engineer.
yeah,
I got
yeah.
engineer.
So I think I always think that it's good to learn as much as possible, for that, and there are different ways of doing that.
Searching, I think you.
Let me answer it this way. So when I was choosing my what subject to study in university, so I went to the National University of Singapore. I had an option also to go to SMU to take accounting, because back then I was really interested in investing, as I mentioned earlier in this call. So I was thinking, should I be doing something related to finance and business in university, or should I be doing something related to like the math and science? Because I also have a passion for those two things. Then I decided that it's actually easier for me to learn about investing on my own, as opposed to learning about engineering or math and science on my own. So I made a decision to go to NUS to take up to take the engineering course that was offered to me. Then I learned about investing on my own. So I think the beautiful thing about the internet is that there's so much great resources from people who actually manage money that have done really well. There's a lot of these resources that we can learn about them through the internet, and that was what I actually did to educate myself as an investor while I was pursuing my university degree. And so far, it has worked out well.
Okay, I think that's pretty much. It's a very good question to end for today's webinar. So just to, I just want to really thank you, Serging and like Chun Ting, to really avail yourself just to value add to these young minds here. A lot of them are actually waiting, or rather they already got placement in uni and stuff like that. Yeah, and to have all this information given to them at like a platter, right, before they even like start. It's really an information which they can use lah. Like I feel like at the very least, yeah. So just remind all of our participants that we will include all of you in the mailing list for the good investors and also for Money Hour. If you need the slides for the Money Hour one, then you just please get it from. I think for my slides, I will also like if you need it, you just email me as well, because I'm not sure. I also don't want to appear to be a bit spammy. So yeah, the whole webinar has been recorded. So I will discuss with Chun Ting and Serging about how we maybe we will need to upload it somewhere or what. If you need to access it, you could access it in the future lah. So anything else to add on, Serging and Chun Ting?
I just want to say thank you everybody for spending time this session, and Tim and Caleb for organizing this. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah. So same here. I mean, thank you for having me, and I always feel such a privilege to really talk to especially young people. You know, so that it really
Actually, it's ego
um,
boost for us, right, to feel young.
I think it's always great because I just say that ultimately go and learn as much as you can, get as much as you can, but thereafter don't let your financial but don't judge other people by their financial success or their career success, and at the same time don't let anyone judge you by that either. So ultimately do something with purpose and use money as an enabler. Use your what that you earn as an enabler, and have a purpose that's greater than yourself. I think that's that is the best thing that you can do with your life as you go forward and choose your education and choose your path ahead.
I remember the quote that you mentioned about something not to maximize or to be comfortable or something like that. Maybe you
Yeah,
want
I mean, if it's a philosophy of life to be sufficient rather than to maximize, because if and sufficiency is actually about contentment lah. But contentment is not about a passive thing to say that you bo bian lah, whatever happens, I just take it. That's not contentment. Contentment is actually an active choice of deciding what is important to you. And when you decide what is important to you, then all your decisions, including financial decisions, will revolve around that. And contentment is about not needing to have everything, not having to chase everything, because actually you don't need everything in order to be happy.
Yeah, thanks. So thanks, Chunting and Sajing. So for the rest of you, I'll see you. I think we'll see you. I do not know how to end this webinar. Should I just end the meeting now, or
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. Bye.
Everyone, thanks again.
Bye.
Okay, good night.
Everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye. Good night. Good night. Go and sleep.
Good night all.
Your bed is calling you. Anyways,
Good night.
good night.